Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting to order at 5:04 p.m. This meeting is the Lake Bluff Public Library Committee meeting of our Finance Committee. We have our committee members here. We do have a couple others, so I'd like to have roll call if possible. Who'd like to start us off?
Go, Kathy.
Kathy Meierhoff.
Bill Hayes.
Matthew Zaute.
Shaul. I'll change the tag on my Zoom, so it is just me.
And Katie Horner.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Do we have someone to volunteer to take minutes for this meeting? I don't know how that is typically done, if someone just opts in or assigns, or do I take minutes for committee meetings?
I often take the finance. Frankly, I'm having a lot of tech problems at this end, so maybe Bonnie, could I lean on you to do that?
Katie, sorry, Kathy, unfortunately tonight I am probably going to have to step away at times.
I can transcribe if you'd like.
Otherwise, I would do it. Be happy to.
Okay.
Matt said, yeah, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
If I figure out why this isn't working, I'll chime in and join, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen of tonight's agenda. And scroll down to the agenda. Are there any additions or amendments to tonight's agenda from anyone?
No.
No.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we will proceed to public comment. Are there any members of the public here to address the board? Seeing none, we will move on to tonight's agenda. The first item, which is the review and discussion of the draft fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget. And with that, of course, my cat jumps on the table the second we get here.
That's right.
I'm going
a lot
to
of pets at our meetings. Don't worry about that.
Okay, I remember that from recordings, but I was hoping to not have that. Anyway, what I'd like to do is start first with the Excel spreadsheet document and then move on to the Word document. Would that work for everyone?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Well, and I just want to again acknowledge and thank Katie and the rest of the department heads who within my first week did a lot of training and help with preparing this budget for tonight. So thank you, Katie and others. What I'd like to do is, well, first, how is the view on the screen? Is it zoomed in enough for everybody? Matt says yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Looks good.
Great, fantastic. What I'd like to do is just draw your attention to just to the columns, just to go over to confirm what we're looking at here. This first tab is revenues, and I will review this briefly and then review expenditures. Right now, what you're seeing is a year-by-year comparison from fiscal year 1920, 2021, 21, 22, 22, 23. And then the green column is an estimated list of revenue as of, I believe this was drafted by Eric. And I'm wondering, Katie, if you happen to know when, was it like right towards the end of his tenure?
I believe so. I would say probably sometime in the summer, probably July at the latest, obviously, but I think it was right around then.
It's less relevant in the revenue page or tab as it is maybe more important to look at when we look at expenditures. That's why I wanted to highlight this because it is an estimate. And then we have the proposed budget for 2023-2024. over here, what you can see is the 5% levy, which has been approved, and so forth. So what I'd like to do is just review the proposed budgeted revenue line by line. And for that, I'm going to go to the Word document. But with regards to the spreadsheet, are there any questions about how the spreadsheet is formatted? Any information needed by the committee?
No, I'm good.
I'm good, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So hearing nothing, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and then bring up that Word document for you all. Okay. So what I think what might be helpful, since I can see you all, but audio might be more helpful to know when we're ready to move on with discussion in each line. I'm told that it's customary for this finance committee to review each budget line, which we will do code by code. So let me know. I'll give an overview, a brief overview of each line, and then open up for discussion questions, and then we'll move on. Does that format work for everybody?
Sure.
Okay.
And
Great.
Renee, since I'm not a member of the committee, I'm just here to learn. Just
Yes.
if I don't respond, please just continue. It's all good.
Okay. But you're welcome to ask any questions too, Bonnie. Please feel free.
You know, it's hard for me sometimes not to ask questions. I just
That
might.
is
Just
encouraged. I will tell you, Katie and the other department heads know that my first week here was full of questions.
might.
So I am like-minded. So don't worry. Don't worry. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more just so we can
Thank you.
see it. Sure. Happy to do it. Okay.
Renee, I'm gonna actually step aside and pick up a different pair of glasses, but I'm listening and I'm tuning in, so keep going.
Okay. Thank you. So with regards to property taxes for fiscal year 23-24, the 5% levy was voted on by the board and approved, resulting in an estimate, well, not an estimate, an expected expenditure revenue, excuse me, of $1,084,351. Property taxes make up approximately 94% of our revenue. And so with that, this is the expected amount that we should be receiving through property taxes. Any questions with this one?
No.
Okay, thank you. Below this, 35700, fines. And as you see here, we tend to budget conservatively for incoming revenue such as fines. And while Katie Corner is here, I just want to share, her feedback and the feedback of the other department heads. Currently, we're projected to bring in approximately $1,500 to $1,800 in fines and fees. We do not, we still receive revenue for items that are missing, damaged, or billed. So even though there are no fines, we do still collect monies for those items. So we're conservatively budgeting $1,000 for projected revenue here. Anything to ask Katie or follow up here discussion?
Well, I have a question on this one, and I
Yes.
don't want to like split hairs, but so the fines, we determined to no longer assess fines. We still see in our monthly meetings where there's a trickle of fine revenue that comes in. I've asked about that previously, and the guidance I've gotten is these are replacement costs for books that were never returned, not really fines. And so I'm wondering, do we need to recategorize these, because they're not revenue per se, unless we can elect not to repurchase the book or asset, I guess.
Or even rename the budget code to fines and fees, so it's more encompassing and accurate to what you're saying, Matt.
Yeah, fines / replacement costs or whatever, yeah, whatever the appropriate terminology is.
Katie, do you have a response here, or do you want me to take this one?
I mean, I was gonna say, I don't think that there's any, I don't think there's any issue in renaming it. And of course, I had something that I was gonna say, and then it immediately flew out of my head. So I do apologize. It's the end of the day for me, and my brain's coming a little unplugged. If I think of it, I will jump back in. It was in regards to something that Matt said, but of course I can't remember what it
Well,
was.
the overall name of it is fines and forfeitures. So you could take the fines off and just put forfeitures.
Yeah,
Oh, I remember what it was. Where Matt, you were talking about if the library elects not to purchase another copy. It very much depends on a case-by-case basis, depending on the item, the collection, the circulation statistics, the ease of being able to purchase it. But there are some items that we do elect not to repurchase, or we may not be able to repurchase. But we still, I think we typically still charge a replacement copy or a replacement fee for that item, because theoretically, if it had not been damaged or lost, it would still be circulating.
And is part of that fee reprocessing fee, since it's a new item?
Yes,
That's pretty typical.
Yeah, there's the cost of the item, and then in most cases, there's a $5 processing fee that's added onto it to account for repurchasing, recataloging, et cetera.
yeah,
Well,
like
with
if we can
Matt-
just switch it to forfeitures. And I'm also thinking, again, I don't want to spend too much time here, so I apologize. But from a learning curve for any potential new trustees, we don't have fines. Well, why do we have a fine revenue line?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's very solid recommendation. Any other thoughts here? It's a internal name for this budget code, so I think there should be no problem changing it, right, Katie?
I don't think so. It might require a little, like, we might have to get someone to update it in BSNA, but I don't think it should be
Yes.
a big problem.
Kathy, Bill, any comments?
Yep, no, I'm fine.
Good idea.
Good.
All right. Thanks, Matt, for that suggestion. I think that's a good process improvement there. Okay, anything else for discussion for this newly named forfeiture line? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll move on. Photocopy charges. We are conservatively budgeting or proposing a budget of $2,000 based on activity we saw in the past year. Any discussion with this?
No.
Kathy?
No, I'm fine.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Passport fees. Let's talk about it. So we are greatly exceeding what was proposed as the budgeted revenue for passports for this fiscal year. We had a discussion at department heads about what should be budgeted, given the history of conservative budgeting for revenue at the library, while also wanting to make sure we accurately reflect what we anticipate the budget to be. There are some considering factors of why we increased the budget line, the projected revenue to 18,000 over 15. One of which is, and I was talking to Bill about this the other day, and I learned this from the department heads, they are no longer approving any other passport sites. Is it Lake County, Katie, in the entire Lake County, or just in the general vicinity of our library?
It's larger than that. I think I spoke to someone at Park Ridge who said that they were looking to have their library be approved as an official passport agency, and they were denied. I don't know what the timeline for that was. I don't know if the State Department, like if they put a cap on a, within a certain time frame and then open it up again, I'm not entirely sure. But I do know that other libraries in the Lake County, Cook County, maybe even, as far as like DuPage or McHenry counties, the State Department is not accepting applications to become passport agencies, right? They're not adding additional agencies at the moment. So we are one of few in the
Yeah,
immediate area.
The State Department actually last summer released, there was conversation in an article that I read that kind of their long-term goal is for this all to be online. So they could actually be preparing to make some transitions to that in certain areas. I don't know. But I think that is down the road.
Well, that'll be something we need to keep our ear to the ground about for sure. Given the fact that Shields Township no longer provides services, given the fact that we can see already in our buildings an increase in families with young children wanting passports or passport renewals. Kathy shared some feedback about, the schools doing their abroad trips again. All these things made us confident in increasing the proposed revenue for this line to at least to 18,000.
Great.
Any discussion here?
Do we have, and will we have the sufficient staff for that?
That is something that I am eager to assess in my time here at Lake Bluff as I just started. I do know that just within the last week with staffing, I have noticed that there is a huge amount of activity in the passport area. I think it was 2 days in a row, Katie, please correct me if I'm wrong, staff hit the max number, their record of number of passports done in a day, and that was the first week of January.
In the first week of January, we processed 50 applications, which is more than we processed in the entire month of June 2022. We honestly, I don't necessarily think we are going to, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that we hit our maximum number, our record-setting number of total passports processed in a month by the end of this week. To say it has been bonkers is an understatement.
So
Right.
to answer, oh, go ahead, please. Was it
No,
Bill
no,
or
it's just
Matt?
say, kind of going along with what Kathy had said with, families going or schools going on trips. If the high schools are doing their spring break trips and now going overseas, you'll probably see a lot of stuff going on in the January timeframe for people to get their passports in time. So it's
a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It is. And I think to kind of circle around to your question, Kathy, do we have the capacity for this? That is a question that I am very eager to assess and evaluate given our current staffing levels. And I want to give myself a little bit more time to assess how it's working and how staff are balancing workload in addition to passports. But I will tell you, we don't take walk-ins, but I know that staff were providing the best above and beyond service recently and did take a walk-in and that is just more than is expected. And of course we appreciate that entirely, and the library benefits from the revenue here, but definitely want to assess that as well.
Yeah, Katie, if you were when you said the record in a month, what's the previous record? Is it 2000?
We're looking at about, I think 85, 86 in an entire month. That we had 51 at the end of last week, and we have had some cancellations this week, and I have had, at least individually, I've had to pare back my own availability just so I have enough time to do other library stuff. But it was not out of the realm of possibility that we could tack on an additional 30 plus applications processed this week. I don't necessarily think we're going to get there, but we will probably get close.
Okay, and remind us again, how much revenue does the library get per passport?
The short answer is $35 per application.
Yeah,
The longer answer is that our shipping, the cost of shipping the applications comes out of that revenue, but we can combine, like, for example, if we have let's say we have 5 different people come in during the course of the day and all 5 want routine service, we will mail all of those together in a single envelope. So we're only paying once for shipping, but we're still collecting the $35 for each application. We do also have like loyalty rewards points that we get through the post office that we frequently use for free shipping. It gets us a few extra free labels. And sometimes we have patrons who will pay an additional $27.90 for priority express shipping, in which case the cost of shipping comes entirely out of that fee and isn't pulled from the $35. So but Martha maintains a spreadsheet that keeps all of those hypotheticals in mind and calculates the full revenue that we're bringing in. And she did say last week we broke 20,000 total for the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So
I'll add to this conversation. I'm eager to take my passport certification training. It's about 5 to 8 hours to complete. And I don't know if this week will be the week I can do it, but I'm hoping next week, and then there will be additional availability in my schedule. I need to figure out when I will be available, but I will certainly be added to the rotation.
Great, but Renee, right now, I think you've got a lot to do, so.
Yes, that's exactly why I said what I did.
So don't,
Right.
we're well ahead of schedule on this, so we can hold out until you're really available to do that. So actually, I asked this several months ago, and whether volunteers could be trained for this, and at that time the answer was no.
no.
If that's ever an option, keep in mind this, I'm sure we could find some, and that would alleviate staff commitment, but
Yeah, right now it has to be employees of the passport, or people who are currently employed by the organization that's acting as an agency. So right now it has to be staff.
Good thing to consider if ever they change that.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion with the projected revenue or proposed projected revenue for passport fees?
so we put in for 18 next year, is that right?
Correct, which is an increase of 3.
Sure, and that's, I think, a conservative, good
Yeah.
estimate.
Yeah, there's opportunities for that to go up with kind of where things have been going lately.
Okay, good to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all. 38850 license renewal fees. I was assured by staff the amount of time and workload that it takes to complete one of these license renewal is incredibly less than passports. This isn't a huge number in terms of quantity of renewals or revenue, but there is a question of, if staff have capacity, do we want to market this service? I think that goes into a larger discussion of staff services and priorities and where does this fall? But the budgeted projected revenue here is 500 based on previous year's activity.
Yeah, so I have a question, Renee, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I presume that this service is when my sticker is up, I get some kind of notice from the state, and I have to renew this sticker. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Or are we talking about, this, the card registration renewal?
It's for
Katie,
Oh, I'm sorry,
yes.
Renee.
No. She was asking me, but you were also nodding. So I think both of us are agreeing. Yes, Kathy, that
Okay.
is the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so,
any staff member can do this renewal. It is not required by a licensed or trained certified agent.
that I have to say that is about 1-minute transaction online. So I mean, I can
Yeah.
understand why you're not being deluged. On the other
Yeah.
hand, I don't see any harm in marketing any service that we do provide, and it's good for the village. If somebody wants to walk in and have you guys do it for them,
Yeah.
better off. And if there's a fee for that, that's to our benefit. So I wouldn't shy away from that. It doesn't sound like it's another deluge like passports or something. It just would be additional revenues, but.
Right, and this is related to a later conversation with the newsletter, but one of the early conversations I've already had about the newsletter is promoting services in addition to, or yes, in addition to events. Right now, the print newsletter is almost entirely events and less news and information.
Yeah.
And so I think something like this would be a great opportunity to promote in that print piece. We can talk about costs later, but just in terms of type of content we're considering for that piece.
Great idea.
Any further discussion about license renewal fees?
No.
Matt?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Non-resident fees. So just to clarify what this is, so for those individuals that live in unincorporated Lake, is it Lake Bluff, Katie? I need to
Mhm.
double check. Yeah, I just didn't want to misspeak. They are not currently paying taxes towards services that others who live in incorporated Lake Bluff receive through property taxes and such. And so individuals can apply to receive a library card, and the current recommendation is $6,000 to propose for this projected revenue. Any discussion here?
No.
No,
All right. Thank you, everybody. 37020. This is revenue from our intergovernmental agreements with our school partners, District 75, District 115, and Forest Lake. If I'm
Forest
not
Bluff.
mistaken.
Forest
Thank
Bluff.
you. Thank you. Almost got that right. And this again, just to kind of review this, the school districts pay an amount of money to make sure that their students receive access to the library and its materials. Given their population, and this is the amount that will continue to remain based on the intergovernmental agreement signed with the parties, which is $1,550. Any discussion here?
Just for your background information, this has been in effect about 5 or 6 years. Most recently, the Montessori, and we send out a letter agreeing to it to all the districts involved. Kind of, we decided the best time was after the school year starts. But it's occurring to me as I look at this, somebody should look, no hurry on this, but at the original agreements and see if there's any time limit on that and need for renewal, because we wouldn't want that to slip by.
I was thinking the same thing, and that was on my list. I'm mostly thinking about increase in student population. What if anything might happen if those school districts are seeing an increase in student population? Do we have something discussed in the contract about readdressing that that amount? I'm looking in the chat. Oh, okay, thanks, Matt. Yes, thank you, Kathy. I'll take a look at that. Get a copy of the agreement too. Any discussion with this one?
No.
No.
Okay. 37000 village contribution. Because of the intergovernmental agreement that we have with the museum and the village, we receive funds for maintaining the museum as well, as a tenant. I don't know if that's the correct term, but essentially they're leasee. Again, not sure if that's the correct term. And this is the amount that is recommended based on previous years, and there hasn't been change in this line for a while.
I think a better interpretation is that the funds are to the maintenance of the building, that if we had a lease that drew income would help to manage those building requirements.
Got it. Thank
It's
you for
not-
that.
The actual lease improvements within the museum and so forth is their responsibility. But
Okay.
it's more, the roof and the leaky pipes and all those types of things that's
For their piece of the property.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Understood. Thank you. Anything, I finally have a copy of this intergovernmental agreement, thanks to Bettina, as of, I think it was yesterday. I talked to her, so any discussion with this?
Mm-mm. No.
Do we want to wait? Oh, Matt, you're back. Okay, just checking in. All right. The next one is 37500, interest income, and I just want to make sure I can scroll it down so we get as much possible on screen. Well, the library has sought out new investment opportunities, and because of this, interest earnings have significantly increased compared to previous years. I believe just alone, and thank you, Katie, for this information, and Bill for the suggestion. Just in November of 2022, interest on our holdings was over $2,000, $2,500. So based on that, a very conservative projected revenue is $10,000 on our investments. Any discussion with this? I mean, kudos to whoever made that decision to change.
I mean, that could be higher going forward if, but we can leave it here at 10,000. But there's, again, as we look through the budget, as we go through the whole thing, if there's areas that we need to adjust, that would be one area that could go up to supplement any extra expenses.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Any other discussion here? Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. Miscellaneous income, 38900. And we'll have some discussion here too, based on our notes. So traditionally, this has been a catch-all for miscellaneous income or revenue. So small items such as the sale of flash drives and earbuds, I'm told those are not really selling except for the occasional, the other day someone needed one, but pretty minimal sales there. Also, we've historically put income or revenue received. Well, I actually don't know if that is true, Kathy, if the
Yeah,
money
I
from the
wasn't-
foundation goes here.
I wasn't sure if what you were looking for here.
So in last year's budget, there was the 17,000, and I wonder if that was the reimbursement for Melissa's position.
that was the addition. Yeah, that was the foundation donation to the library or directly to payment for the Stroh room. It was that plus I think 10,000 from the library wrapped up the cost of the Stroh room. So I don't know. I didn't see it as income to the library.
Kathy, the original document that I was working from was Eric's from the last year, and there was a $17,000 for the development coordinator salary. I think that's the budget line that
Oh,
that
okay.
money
Yeah, I can see where that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but income, but versus a donation kind of a thing.
Yeah, the other donation, or the donations for the Stroh room went in under I think the gifts and grants
Yes.
fund
Yeah,
that we
because there
have.
was something about, I think Bettina notified you that we were over that amount or whatever, or Laurence.
Yeah, we were over
Yeah.
the amount that we charged to that, but because we were bringing in equivalent revenue in a different line, it
Right.
equaled out.
Yeah, no, now I can understand. I was actually kind of
Mhm.
wondering how much we had put into that person, so good to know.
Kathy, I'm gonna lean on you for any guidance with regards to the foundation piece, but also just open this up for any other discussion. I just kept the number as is. However, we can adjust it to a more realistic number if we are not going to. It doesn't sound like there are plans, but I don't want to speak for anybody here.
So I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me. What number are you
Oh,
talking
sure.
about?
Let me really quickly do that for you. So right now we're looking at, now I'll zoom in for you, Kathy. I'm just getting to it. So
Income.
miscellaneous income 38900.
Yeah.
This is last year. What was budgeted, the 17,000.
Okay,
And this is what was estimated in terms of received. I mean, there's a huge discrepancy there. I put in the same as what was budgeted for this year, not knowing, but if we need to adjust this to something else, we can, for sure.
and Katie, that what represented payment or salary for Melissa Williams, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I've kind of been wondering what that actual final figure was. So was it 17,000 or was it $3,253? So Renee and Katie, that would be something to find out, and that from,
Yes,
because that's long ago now, so we would know exactly what was paid to Melissa, and that would, I guess, be useful if there was a similar relationship set up, but it wouldn't be anywhere near $17,000.
Right.
So if you just want to hold that open,
we can do that. Bill, I think I heard you wanting to say something. Did you want to say something?
Well, none of those, there's another, I know I'm jumping ahead, but you've got a gifts and grants fund breakdown later on in there.
Yeah.
Is those the two unrestricted donations and restricted donations? Is that feeding this particular miscellaneous income or not?
No,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I thought I could have misremembered, but I thought I indicated that the grant fund, this one is based on per capita grant, and we have no plans right now to apply for grants, but that's not saying we won't.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and so obviously incredibly conservative here, but no, this was different.
Okay, because on the grants, you've got it broken down into two. You've got the per capita grant and miscellaneous grant at 8153. Then the donations, then which is unrestricted and restricted, totaling 17.
Right.
So they're probably two different things then.
I think they're two different 17s.
Yep.
Just yeah, good thought to double check that though. Thanks, Bill.
So, yeah, back to the miscellaneous, it kind of makes sense that income to the library would have been what the foundation was reimbursing for the salary. So that would have been the budget item. And then we had, what was it, 32 something?
3253, that number, is that the one?
Yeah. So Renee, no hurry, but if you could just check on what we actually did pay in salary.
Yes.
In this, because it would have all been this fiscal year. So
right. I did write that down,
Great.
and I wonder if that estimate, Katie, the green column, based on Eric's numbers, Melissa had already stopped providing, stopped working here by then anyway. So I wonder if that 3,000 is the 3,253 is the final number. I will definitely check to see.
Okay, yeah. And to your original question was, by no means do we need a $17,000 budget line there.
Okay.
We could leave it, again, you and I have talked about the foundation and the relationship with the library and so forth. We could leave it at maybe $3,000 just as a line holder, and then move forward accordingly. But again, 17 is, that would be lovely, but I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually the number that I had in my head, Kathy. So we are on the same page.
Okay.
But I didn't know if it made sense to everyone. So we will amend the draft proposed revenue for 38900 to 3,000. And then we'll also get an answer about how much was that position paid?
Yeah, that's good.
In the end, total, yeah,
Thanks.
okay.
The
Alright.
other thing then to check against that, because I think we were paying the salary out of the I know we're going to jump to it, the librarian's salary, and then getting reimbursed. So
Was she a librarian, Katie, or was she
No.
staff?
I don't,
She was a
I-
staff. She was
yeah,
staff.
Right.
that was gonna be my guess, but I
Yeah.
don't know personally.
So
Yeah.
we could have been paying her out of staff salaries out of 40030, and then
Yep.
getting reimbursed then on this line of 38900.
That
Yeah.
makes sense
Yeah,
in
just-
terms of process.
Yeah,
And-
just to say that we take it away from here, we probably want to
Yeah,
take
yeah.
it away from the staff salary part.
Yeah,
if
and
it's
that-
got
and-
thing there.
And Bill, I think you're correct, because I believe from Eric's original draft from that, I basically took his the same document that he used
Yeah.
last year around this time, and I believe that's what he said for the staff salary budget line.
Okay,
He
So I
did,
think you're
he
correct.
did, and I also, I did keep it in for reasons we can discuss, one of which is, well, many reasons, but we can discuss, salary comparison, and some of my thoughts about the job salaries here, and how they rank and compare to other libraries. And we're not there for discussion yet, but we will be very shortly. So, but yes, thank you for clarifying. We'll need to decide, as you know, the committee will need to give recommendation about what to do with that. So we're going to change this review. We're going to change the projected revenue cost to 3,000 for miscellaneous income. Thank you all for the good discussion here.
Yeah, good, very good discussion. Thanks.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and reshare the Word document as we go on to personnel. Let's see, come on, click. Okay. So in previous Word documents, it wasn't separated, so that's why this Word document is formatted this way. Both the 40025 line and the 40030 line. So a little context just to confirm, we did discuss how there was that additional 17 included in last year's budget, and rolling that into this year's budget. One of the things that Bill and I talked about with regards to this budget line, and I should say there are two separate budget lines. One is for staff, and those are for job classes that are not deemed librarian level work. We have a limited number of librarians at Lake Bluff Library and deemed that way. Katie, is it all of the department heads or just 3 of the 4 department heads?
In terms of the accreditation, or like you are considered a librarian if you have a master's in library and information science, I believe it is
How-
3 of the 4.
How they're getting paid? Do you know if Jill's job is getting paid for out of staff salary or librarian salary?
I believe it is staff salary.
Okay.
I don't believe there was a change from her previous position.
Okay, that's super helpful, thank you. We do have full-time librarian in adult services in addition to department heads. We do not have full or part-time librarians in youth services. Eliza is the only librarian level. Do you have any part-time librarians in your staff, Katie?
No,
Okay, okay.
no, wait,
So
well,
just-
sorry, I take that back. Our cataloger, I don't know how she might be paid out of staff. I know that she is an accredited librarian, but I don't know what budget line her salary comes out of.
We have a couple of those situations. We have an accredited librarian being paid as an associate just as of this last fiscal year. So, I mean, already you can see there's some inconsistencies, a little bit of confusion, some learning that I need to do about how staff are paid and who's paid out of what budget line. So just kind of setting that as some context. one of the things that I wanted just to advocate here for is a potential review of staff salaries with regards to comparison salary of other libraries. In order to do work like that, working with a consultant to do a salary comparison, we would need job descriptions for all staff, which we do not have at the moment. So that is a priority for me with staff to identify the work that they do and have that written down in some way. We can't have any sort of salary comparison without being able to deliver them a job description. In addition, what I'd also like to say here is besides the work of the adjustment, the salary adjustment that took place last fiscal year, staff have worked 6 months without a director. And in previous libraries and organizations I've worked with, that is to be commended for staff to who all have stepped up in such a time of limited leadership. And I'd really love to acknowledge that in some way monetarily to all staff. In addition, I'd like to just bring up inflation and cost of living expenses, both of which are very much increasing. And the other piece of this is that I'm still trying to understand how raises have been provided to staff previously. It doesn't seem that information is known among staff, but my discussion with Bill was helpful. We were discussing, it seemed like Eric would have one number for staff, and maybe that 1% number would be an increase, and that would include both cost of living and merit. Some organizations do merit only, some organizations do just cost of living. Libraries, it's mostly both in my experience, but depending on their capacity to provide cost of living in years of significant increases for cost of living, that may be different library to library. So that is some background I wanted to provide for this discussion. And so I'll just open it up for any discussion questions about this line. These two lines, excuse me.
I have a question, and I'm just reading through this and reading through another document. I'm a little confused. Discussion of a consultant on this topic. I guess I thought you had recommended, you didn't think a consultant was necessary, but then I've read that you sort of do lean in the direction of a consultant. So what is your recommendation?
Thank you for clarifying. I do not think a consultant is needed for writing job descriptions. That is something that, no, I remember you and me and Bonnie talked about that.
Yeah.
Job descriptions can and should be written by staff at the organization. They're the ones doing the work and they can do that. But oftentimes consulting services will have access to a database of salary information from all of the libraries and Rails, for example, our consortium. And so oftentimes that work is effectively done by an outside entity. And, it also, I think, provides a little bit more confidence for staff when it is done by a third party compared to perhaps a director or a subcommittee of the board. Just having that third party, that neutral party to provide that information and research provide some validity that I think is welcome by staff, having been myself a part of the organizations that have done that. Thanks for clarifying that question, Kathy.
Yeah, Matt, I think it seems to me that I was in a conversation with maybe when you were on HR, or if you're still on HR, regarding collecting salary information. It seemed to me a couple of times, Eric presented that to the board, that it is pretty easily available. I don't know that it is by job description, since we don't have job descriptions. It's kind of hard to compare. Where I can see where that is a bit of a conundrum. But good, and I think the important thing is I think tonight is that we have, you're satisfied and Bill's satisfied and we're all satisfied with the dollars available. But I think this probably the next step would be to work with HR on, there's
Yeah.
several tasks here that need to be accomplished. And even we've
Agreed.
had, in the past, we've had joint HR finance committee meetings to accomplish goals as well. So
That makes complete sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a little bit last night about the fact, once you've got your job descriptions, then you've got the something you can kind of scope to find out where the salary ranges are supposed to be for those positions.
That's right.
And it gives us then the ability to kind of look at our staff and say, okay, we're at this level and we need to go up here, or we're at a satisfactory level. So it's something I think we had in our goals before, so that we can figure out career paths for different individuals within the library.
Good.
Bonnie is asking a question in the chat, asking about what is the current annual amount of salaries for the library. I'm just going to do a quick screen share back to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So we can all look at that. I'm going to switch to the expenditure tab here. So right now we're looking at lines, the top two lines, 40025 and 40030. So for this fiscal year, the one we are currently in, the current budgeted amount is $210,000 for librarian salaries. That's why we were having that discussion about quote unquote librarians, and then staff, 360,000. I do want to clarify a little bit here of why this number is flat and why this number is not. This number included Eric's salary, my predecessor's salary, which after working 10 years and so forth, is at a different level than mine currently. So there is savings happening, even keeping it flat, and that allows to free up some additional funds for increased raises or any additional salary adjustments due to a comparison. And then looking at this salary, this was based on really looking at the levy and seeing what we could do here. But I just wanted to explain why this number is flat and why this one isn't. There is money available here that is available to help with adjustments and raises if needed, based on the changes of staff.
Right. And when you look at the total personnel services, an overall change is 3.4%, which is still under the levy number of 5.
Yep.
So, and I know part of that is the medical insurance going down and as well, which it looks like it's higher this year, but was budgeted lower, and now it's budgeted higher. So
correct, and that's another thing that I was going to call to your attention to. There is savings for medical and IMRF due to your personnel change in the position of library director. So that's why this number is increased, but not as high as the estimate from Eric Strapped. But let's go back to discuss, thank you, that was a good connection. Going back to salaries for librarian and staff, any further discussion here?
No.
I just want to be sure I'm clear. So is our plan moving forward to go back, get those job descriptions or titles, and then benchmark those given our demographics and our geography? As a
I'd like to.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation. Having worked at small public libraries in the past, I know that sometimes it is hard to compare. It's not often an apples to apples comparison when you look at some of the jobs. I'll give, not wanting to put a name to it, but adult services manager, Martha's position. The amount of responsibilities that position has pieced together within one job, once we write it all down, I think it would be difficult to compare that to any other position. So it is really important to scope the job description first, so that whether you do it in-house or you do it with a consultant, any salary comparison has that information. And one of the things we did talk about, Bill and I, yesterday is, we might get some information about how different our salaries are in comparison to other libraries, and in that maybe they're not competitive anymore. And it may take us a couple of years to get them adjusted. So a lot of the reasons why I wanted to recommend these numbers is because we have a 5% levy. We do have the flexibility to help with that this year. If for some reason we learn information about needing to spread it out across more than 1 year.
Renee, how long do you think it would take you to prepare the job descriptions for the, to the degree that you would need to go to the next step to have a comparison?
Well, I've already, because Eliza's, one of Eliza's jobs, put in her 2 weeks on my first day. We've already done a lot of work, Eliza and I, on the idea of writing a job posting versus a job description. I don't know what other experience the other department heads have in writing job descriptions, so I'd want to figure that out first. And then what my hope is then have those department heads, after they write their own job descriptions with me, they would write the job descriptions for the positions that they oversee in their team, and work with those team members to make sure that they're scoped correctly. And then the director typically approves and reviews all job descriptions. So Bill had a similar question yesterday. I'd like to say as fast as I possibly can, because I think this is really important. And given the last 3 years and feedback we've received, I really would like to prioritize this. I don't want.
Well, no, you don't have to. I'm just.
I know, I was gonna say no more than 2 months, but potentially much less, depending on how quickly we could turn this around. I want to make sure that staff feel comfortable, department heads feel comfortable writing their own. I think that is going to be important. And then having that opportunity to do that and have experience writing job descriptions with their staff as well.
Yeah. Well, that's an important goal. Just
Yeah,
keep us posted.
for sure.
Work with HR, because they'll on an ongoing basis, because it sounds like they'll be involved with this a lot. So
Yes, I knew today was the first meeting, and then the trickle down effect, buildings and grounds based on the budget that we have for building and maintenance and so forth. Any other discussion with these lines?
very quick question. The IMRF, that I presume we have part-time librarians working for us. Are they paying into, and is IMRF as a part-time, or is that just for full-time employees?
It depends on the amount of hours they are working, which was another discussion I had in my first week. If you work over, it's technically 20 hours, but for concern, some libraries say no more than 18 hours. Those positions are unbenefited. More than 20 hours or more a week, you're locked in as an employer at the IMRF rate. So for example, the position we're posting in youth services, that's 24 hours a week on average. So that will receive IMRF benefits. And that's because one of our staff in the youth services team is going under 18 hours. So she's changing her hours. So we're replacing those benefits.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. Let's see here. Here we are. Okay. Anything else with these two salary lines? Or excuse me, budget lines for salaries?
No.
No.
Okay. Thank you all. So I know we kind of touched on this. Medical insurance. There is one fewer staff person that requires insurance for spouse and family members. the early draft of Eric's budget would be sufficient for coverage for this, given also any increases for the packages for the plans. Any discussion or questions here for 40400?
No.
Okay. I saw your head shake, Matt, so we're good.
No, yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I can see you all too, so it works. Okay, 40900, other employee benefits. This line provides flu vaccines for library staff. I do have notes here, and Katie, you're welcome to add anything here. The village may not be offering that next year. However, oh, and I see a typo here. This should say 2324. My apologies. However, staff, department heads and I recommend that if this doesn't come through, that the budget line remains for any unexpected benefit to staff that might come up. Any discussion here?
Nope.
No.
No.
Okay. So back to IMRF. Again, due to staffing changes, IMRF contributions will decrease. So the current projected recommendation, oh, I forgot to put that number in the Word document, my apologies. Let's go down. 31,000 is what the projected or what the proposed budget for expenditures is. Any discussion with IMRF?
What is IMRF?
The Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
So public library workers and I believe some school staff, not teachers, but is that right, Kathy? Some
Yes,
staff working in public schools.
Non-certified staff.
Yes.
Teachers' aides and so forth.
Yep, it's a pension program. It's locked in at a particular percentage based on that person's salary. And then it's a matching for retirement. Yeah. Any other questions? 31,000 for the proposed expenditure for this budget line, 40980.
No.
No.
Okay, I'll go ahead and share. Sorry for the back and forth. It's working out so far already. Let's see. The next one is 40970, Social Security. This number has been increasing slightly for staff. And so to accommodate the projected increase, and again, I apologize, I'm going to go back and add these numbers because they should be in the Word document as well. As you can see, are you able to see the spreadsheet right now?
No.
Okay,
See
yeah,
the doc.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have two screens anymore, so I have to switch back and forth.
Okay.
So I increased based on the estimated expenditures from last year slightly to 43,000 for Social Security contributions. Any discussion or questions here? Okay.
No.
Thank you. Okay, now we are going to, oops. Yep, first one. Okay. Building and maintenance. This line has been proposed to be increased to 40,000. I think there might be some ample discussion here tonight about this budget line. My recommendation is to increase it based on the required needs of the building. The building survey will help inform the Building and Grounds Committee to prioritize building maintenance and projects. And just due to the aging nature of the building, those will potentially increase. Specific items that staff have identified, 2 out of the 3 toilets have been replaced. However, the third one is in desperate need of replacement. often what I'm seeing just in my own personal life with my home, contractor costs are also increasing as with everything else. So replacement costs for toilet and installation. Along with, I did add this myself, some of my early observations, and I need to review the building survey to see if it talks about lighting. But I am a little concerned about safety at the staff entrance on the side of the building down the steps. Very, very little light, and there's very little light in the parking lot. Anyway, those are just some of many options to consider for building maintenance for line 41000. Questions, discussions?
No, I think the survey that we had done, I mean, it identifies a number of different items that, some that don't need to be worked on quite right now, but I think there were some things there about LED lights and lighting in general, the boiler, some piping issues. So yeah, I think that whether the boiler becomes a capital item or not, but the justification to move that number up is fine.
Yeah, the assessment, the building assessment that Bill's referring to, I went through it with some care, and I will spend a lot more time on it. But I was looking for things that really had to be taken care of, and apparently the hot water heater is one of them. We would be neglectful to just let that wait to cause trouble.
Mhm.
So that's an issue. And then everything else everybody's mentioned. There's also an electrical box somewhere that has a piece of cardboard covering, which doesn't
Yeah.
sound really safe to me.
No, see, that's the fuse box that somebody's
fuse-
taken the breakers out and put looks like put cardboard to stop putting anything else in.
Yeah, I
So, yeah.
don't know. That I was uncomfortable about that.
Yeah, I feel comfortable sticking paper in there.
Yes,
So,
same.
Can you? Yeah.
so
yeah.
of course, though, so yeah, so we're going to be spending some money, and we need to make a good list and work with a building and grounds.
Yeah.
Along with that, everyone, I think we should be taking, and also to Renee's point about service industry costs. I think we should be bidding our jobs more. The library's been using an electric company and plumbing, for many jobs, which is great because you have a relationship, but there's no harm in just bidding out certain jobs, especially things like lighting when it's a lot of different things, and it's, and then we may have projects going ahead. So I would hope that we could lean on whoever is making these phone calls and so forth to at least bid it out, get some different opinions, get some costs, see if there's any preferential treatment for local businesses to the library. Just kind of explore this, because we will have some work ahead of us to keep this building in good shape.
I think that's a really great suggestion, Kathy. I've already been thinking that myself. I mean, you're right. There's a plus and minus to using someone you've worked with for years and years and years. But, there are other public libraries that go out for official bidding processes, and then they accept the lowest bidder. They have the official opening of the bids, and I want to talk to the village to talk about their process and learn
Also,
about
providers to the village. That's important too. Who's doing
Yes.
jobs for the village, for the school, and so forth.
Yes, absolutely. But I think, especially as we are a governmental entity, going out for official bids for projects, more than 5,000, I don't know if we have a threshold in the village already that stipulates the amount of money that you have to go out for bid. I don't know if the library's ever done that before. I know that's true in like Glen Ellen where I worked. If it was a project after a certain amount of money, you had to go out for public bid.
Yeah, I want to say it was $15,000 or something.
Okay.
We did a lot of it when we did landscaping in front and the sprinkler system and so forth, but that was a while ago.
Okay,
It's well
I'll
over
definitely ask.
5. But just a good time. I mean, lighting in particular, we about 2 months ago, we, saw that we paid us huge, we have a history of these crazy bollard lamps outside, which are one of a kind and ridiculously expensive, and they always break. And so it frustrates me when I see in my tenure, I don't know how many times we paid for new lights, but the electrical cost on that for one line I thought was rather stunning. So,
Okay,
sometimes local providers can be beneficial, and sometimes their 60044 zip code is an expensive zip code to run a company, and so we should just look around carefully. Sure, like the toilet thing was a disaster.
Yeah.
Bill and Matt were so helpful moving this along, but that just happened and had to be addressed. But we could, take our time and look a little bit,
Yeah.
for some of these jobs.
I'm still looking for that heated self-flushing toilet.
might need an airplane ticket for that, Matt. Yeah, I don't know any libraries, but I'll let you know.
I will also just point out that we have had a couple of instances where we've had a toilet back up and our janitorial service has been able to take care of it during their cleaning that they do throughout the week. But I would like to point out that it is the one last remaining old toilet that's been causing problems, not the new ones. So
I almost assured the department heads that we will get this done. We will get it
Yeah.
done.
ugh.
Any other discussion on this budget line for building maintenance?
No,
No,
Matt,
Nope.
thank you all. 41020 elevator maintenance. This is based on current contract and previous spending. Staff recommend the budget of 1,500 for fiscal year 23-24. I will say, just in my own learning, a lot of what I'm looking forward to is getting to know all of these contracts and contractors and figuring out when the renewals are, when we're going to have to re-up. Of course, I'm anticipating increases for any and all contracts. So I need to get my hand on this contract and all of these, but to evaluate, but we're recommending 1,500. Any discussion or questions?
no,
no.
No.
41050 grounds maintenance. This line reflects the known cost for ground maintenance. It looks like we've typically used Isauro Reyes as the provider, but not exclusively. The projected expenditure, the cost for grounds maintenance, we are proposing 6,500 for fiscal year 23-24. I will say, just to highlight what in the paragraph, apparently snowfall will sometimes affect the costs here. And who's to say how that will be,
mhm.
how that will play out each year, but any
Renee,
oh yeah, please.
I had made a comment.
Yeah.
Do we have a contract with, first of all, Asurio, if I'm saying that correctly, he does a fabulous job. The library looks better than it ever has. We've made a big investment in the grounds, and his work, he really does a beautiful job. So I'm really, really happy with him, and I think that he's pretty reasonable. But do we have a contract, a seasonal contract with him, or we just build monthly for, he does a little bit here, he does a little bit there kind of thing?
Well, and that's going to be some of what I'm going to look into for you,
Okay.
Kathy. Let me look in the chat. I don't know if this is an answer. Oh, it's just another question. Katie, I don't imagine, do you happen to know the answer to this question?
I don't. I know that previously, I mentioned before, Lindy kept a spreadsheet of contracts and details and stuff. I don't know if it's been updated, but I can, I think that's in the director's files that you have access to. So
I will check.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll check on that, Kathy, just like I'm going to be checking on all the contracts.
Yeah.
But that's a good question if it's just as needed. Oh, someone else was saying something.
Well, let me just finish up. His work is much more recent than the document when Lindy worked on it. So if she didn't update it, he's not going to show up. But typically a landscape contractor will present the client with a budget or with a contract in before early spring. because it includes like a spring maintenance. And so perhaps that was 6,500 and that's what we're paying per year. I certainly recommend him. He's done a great job.
Yeah.
But for example, our association where I live right here in Lake Bluff, our landscape charges went up 40% this year. So don't be surprised. I'm not sure that 65, if that's the same number, would be the same number. So, you know, there's no reason in terms of satisfaction, but just be aware. I think that number, you might want to look at it a little more closely.
Would you recommend increasing that then?
Yes, yeah.
Any proposed number?
Well, I'm even thinking to like maybe 8,000, just to be on the safe
Yeah.
side.
Okay. Better to be safe. And the timing of connecting with them is certainly good, especially if there's like an early before spring.
Yeah,
Contract.
typically they would reach out, but I don't know what the process has been in the past. Since he works for us for snowfall, we'll stay in touch with him. And
Yeah.
there could be some kind of, I would say outreach mid-March if he doesn't contact us by then.
Okay. We will, thank you, Kathy. We will increase this proposed budget to 8,000 for fiscal year 23-24, based on your recommendations. Any other discussion here? Okay, hearing
No.
none. 41313 copier maintenance. This was a good discussion with department heads. Both our patron copier and our staff copier are quite aged. It's just context we're providing. However, you know, we just don't know for future planning. But the staff feel comfortable with, this also needed to be updated, I apologize. 23-24 fiscal year budgeting for 4,000. Any questions here?
No.
Matt?
No.
Oh, I forgot Bonnie's question. Bonnie put in chat, in my time on the board, it seems like we needed repairs on the entry doors every 2 to 3 months. Where is that expense? Well, first, Katie, do you have any background on that, or any other board member?
I don't know the frequency. I know that we were having multiple problems with the automatic door openers at the front. Either the motor had burned out or the accessible buttons on the outside, when you'd press it, it wouldn't open the door. There was one issue where the door would kind of forcibly start to close itself on staff. And it was becoming quite difficult to get in and out of the building. And I believe these happened at different intervals. This was, and a lot of this I remember Lindy handling directly. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't remember much more context than that. Martha might remember, just because Martha remembers just about everything. But yeah, we were having a lot of issues with the doors, and I can't remember if it was a replacement of just the automatic portion, or if like the entire door was replaced. I can't remember. But Bonnie is correct that we did have several issues with the doors within the last 4 years or so since I've been here.
Thanks. Well, a question I would have is, you know, I'd want to go back to see how we paid for it, out of what budget line. It could have been under building maintenance. It could have been under exterior. It could have been under interior. My thought is perhaps building maintenance, but I don't know how it was billed previously. I can look into that for you, Bonnie, and let you know if that works for you.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Katie, thanks for the context. My question to you is, in the last 6 months, have we had automatic door servicing charges?
not since I was acting as interim. I don't believe. There
Okay,
may,
hopefully it's fixed itself. I remember I would
yeah,
go through the checks and, it would just kind of kick up because I think each time somebody was out to service them, it was well over $1,000. And I was like, gosh, what's going on with these doors? You're right, it might not have been an issue. I can't recall anything recently, but I do remember seeing it like every 2 to 3 months for a stretch there.
yeah, no, I feel like, yeah, every few months, Lindy would mention the front door. So we just be like, oh my gosh, again, jeez. But no, I don't, there may have been a couple of like minor quibbles, like, oh, one of the buttons, like you kind of had to hit it at a certain degree with a certain amount of force. But that, yeah, nothing, I don't believe there's been anything significant in the last 6 months or so.
Thanks, Bonnie, for bringing that up. I will say, I'm very glad we have an automatic door opener. It is not part of ADA compliance to have one of those buttons. A lot of buildings, a lot of library staff think that, oh, in order to be ADA compliant, we need a button. That's not true. And those doors are quite expensive, having just worked in a county that opted not to install them because of the price tag. So I just really appreciate having that in this community. I think it's very important. But yes, it's also very expensive because it's such a specialty service. Fingers crossed it continues to work. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was gonna say, it's a good thing we have it because that door is extremely heavy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult door for anyone, certainly if you have a child or somebody with you or a stroller. So I'm very glad that it is an automatic opening thing.
Yep.
But Bonnie's right, it does, we have had, it's had its ups and downs, but it seems to be doing okay now.
All right. Thank you, Bonnie, for bringing that up again.
Before we go ahead from
Oh,
the
yes,
copy,
please.
yeah. So
Go for it.
let me ask a radical question here. Why do we even have a copier? If we're spending $4,000 on it and generating $2,000 in income.
Yep. I mean, I can answer this from a public service standpoint, and then Katie, feel free to jump in here. There are many places in the community that don't provide photocopying, and the public library now in communities is one of the last places that will provide this service. And oftentimes we're a more affordable option than a Kinko's or what have you. Job applications are moving mostly online, but not all. And sometimes require, I'm just thinking about our adult job seekers. Photocopying is still a service that most, if not all, libraries still provide on a wide scale. I'm going to defer the rest of the feedback from Katie. If maybe you could provide some examples of ways that it's used in the adult services department.
Yeah, I mean, we regularly get questions about the copier. Right now, the copier is also acting as our public printer. So if someone is printing from the computer, it goes to the same device.
That's right.
Our staff copier that we have in the office, that is our copier, printer, scanner, and fax machine. So it's a multifunction device. But yeah, we regularly get people, I mean, it can range from wanting to make copies of just photocopies of actual photos, stuff from the newspaper, but we also have people who need to make photocopies for official government documents, tax forms. Yeah, it gets used very frequently. I mean, maybe not every day, but typically it's fairly, I think it's fairly unusual because we keep a running list of the charges we take at the desk. It's unusual for a day to go by where there isn't at least 1 or 2 entries in the photocopy column. So yes, it is very much still used and very much still in demand by our patrons.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it just seems, we're upside down on it.
Yeah.
It's 2023. It seems kind of atavistic to be photocopying and faxing things, but
you would be shocked at the number of faxes we still have to
Yes.
send. there
Yes.
are a lot of government
Probably just me.
agencies and yeah.
Yeah.
But truly our fax machine gets, I mean, not equivalent requests, but we easily get a few requests each week. But yeah, and for us, it may seem, why do we still use it? But for a lot of people, like Renee said, this is the last, one of the last few places that's easily accessible to the majority of the population. So it's still very much an important service.
And
Is there
a
not-
very valid question. Thank
Yeah.
you, Matt, for bringing up. Not too radical. Any questions? Fine.
Is there an option just to raise the cost of what we charge to cover the expenses as far as the public is that an option to sort of prevent us going upside down? I mean, I'm just throwing it out. Just I
Well,
don't
that's
know what we
always-
charge. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the board has oversight to, the staff can recommend and discuss, and then the board has oversight to approve such an increase. If we were to ever be in a situation where we feel we couldn't manage it anymore. Yeah, Matt, go ahead. Were you going to add something?
The other thing I was going to recommend is if we, and I defer to everyone's feedback and judgment here, that we need to have a copy machine available. I just hate seeing us upside down by 100% on the revenue versus the cost. So, when we did the technology audits, I recall Wakanda had really nice copiers and fancy machines, and they contracted them. I think it was with Icon, but I have the detail in my notes. But maybe that's an option where they provide the hardware, they take care of the machine, we pay a nominal cost, and maybe we can get that expense line down.
Well, and I mean, as a public entity, as a public library, we can recoup costs for services and ask for that and then that would go towards revenue if we needed to. So some libraries charge for 3D printing in their maker spaces, and it's not like they're trying to make money. They can't do that. They are essentially just charging the cost for staff time and the materials for the filament and so forth. So applying that sense, we could certainly discuss this if we ever run into a situation, and we're going to get to this with the newsletter, but the cost of paper has skyrocketed. Martha has done some research. There's an article I can send you all. So it's not nominal. So I think it's worth discussing again. And everything is under, I'm interested in everything. How have we done this before? Why are we doing this? How can we evaluate it? How can we process improve to do things differently for the public and for staff? So definitely open to bringing that topic to the technology committee and with staff recommendations.
It seems to me quite a while ago. Well, it would have been, if we've had these things for 10 years, it would have been when I was first on the board, that we were renting a machine. And when I used to work at the middle school, they rented the machine, and that included, as Matt was talking about, that included maintenance. The problem was the machines get older and the maintenance was like almost weekly, but of course schools run those machines constantly. So, but there is that side of it, and maybe worth investigating. Certainly, if we get to the point of replacing one of these, looking into the options and the affordability and comparing the cost.
Absolutely. Katie, I mean, leaning on you for past history and context, anything else you'd like to add about the copier or that you think would be helpful to the conversation?
Nothing that I haven't already said. Just that they do get a lot of use and they're starting to show it.
Yeah, and we could increase the cost. That we're very, very low. I mean, it's terrific to go to the library and copy something, but compared to going out to Office Max or wherever people go now, we are a lot less. So we could, what do we charge? A dime for a
10 cents for black and white, 30 cents for color.
Yeah, so if we doubled our price, which would bring in more dimes and nickels, but it's just it's obviously one way of doing it.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in talking to staff about that. And, I think the board too could have that discussion. If it's in line with recouping costs and how costs are increased, I mean, the board has, oversight to be able to recommend that change.
I can say, I know it's been a few years since we lowered the price, so it wouldn't be a sudden change to the public. It's been this price for a while.
It's those, they've been in place since I've been working here, and that's been almost 4 years now,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I was gonna say that, at least 5, yeah.
Definitely further investigation, even just, looking at a few other libraries' websites to see what they're charging.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a dime in, North Shore, Chicago for black and white, that's pretty great.
Mhm.
And also wanting to consider, the people that use it might be the ones that have those economic barriers if they don't have, but nobody has, very few people have printers at home now. So if they do want printers, if they want to print something, they might come to the library. I learned about the mobile park home in Lake Bluff, which it was a surprise to me, and I drove by it and I didn't even know it. And then when Katie or someone told me about it, I happened to see it. But that's still, even though it's unincorporated, people could use our services at our library. So I don't know if that is discussed much at the board, but definitely something to consider.
Mhm.
Any other discussion about the copier?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
Okay.
I was gonna say, I needed to take
Yes.
this point to leave, but if there's any question that requires context further on in the discussion, I'm happy to provide that information by email or whatever after today. So I'm happy to provide extra info if needed.
Katie, I think Kathy had a question about the databases. You and I talked about that. So
Yes.
I can share that information with her, but any other anything you'd like to add? Kathy was wondering about how we evaluate our online resources and databases in looking at subscriptions.
Yeah, the short answer I can provide really quickly is that Anna's in charge of monitoring databases, and so she pays close attention to monthly use, and every year or at around this time is when she starts looking at, okay, which ones are most cost effective to keep, which ones do we need to eliminate. There's a package of databases under EBSCO, which we got grandfathered into a very, very low cost for those. And she said if we were to get rid of those and then cut costs that way and then try to get back into it, we would be paying significantly higher than what we currently are. So it doesn't make sense to necessarily try to eliminate those. There are we have canceled a couple of databases in the last couple of years. Ancestry.com is probably one of the bigger ones. Very expensive, was not getting much use, especially because it's primarily an in-house use only database. We also there was an ebook provider that was not getting much use as well. And yeah, so that was just she only had literally 2 minutes to give me this information in between passport appointments. So, but that's just a very brief overview. But to answer the overall question, database use is very closely monitored and reviewed regularly, because we know these are expensive resources to purchase access to. So something that Anna in particular looks at very closely.
Thank you, Katie.
No
what was
problem.
the organization you mentioned, Katie, that provides, is it EBSCO?
EBSCO, yes. It's
EPSU.
one of the larger database. I don't know what they're larger than a company. They're not a consortium. But they're one of the big names for online research databases. They're very, very heavily used in schools and libraries. Yeah, academic libraries too.
Actually, all the department heads turned around very quick answers for me today with some of Kathy's questions. So just want to acknowledge that, Katie. Thank you so much. And have a great rest of your evening. Appreciate all the support with this.
Thanks.
Thank you, Katie.
I'll see you guys later.
okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. All right, the next budget line we are to discuss 41314, other professional services. This particular comment is from Martha regarding our vendor for web maintenance, which is new as of this current fiscal year. And one of the things that really she just wanted you all to know is, even though it's a new vendor, they do not include any training for free with our service contract. So if unexpected web issues arise, we may need to pay additional fees, but we are comfortable with the $10,000 that is budgeted for this particular budget line. It's also miscellaneous in case anything else comes up.
Okay.
And I would need to ask, but I think I identified Zoom in the technology line, but you could argue Zoom licensing could fit under this line too. We currently only have 2 Zoom accounts, and yeah, that is, scheduling conflicts have already arisen in the first week that I've been here. So with programming and meetings, really like to add another few logins if we can, but just providing that context. Any discussions or questions with this line?
No.
So,
Thank you. Computer services. CVI is the company that we work with for our IT and technical services. And so anything from saving Eric's files from his login on his computer and transferring them to Katie's computer, and then having CVI transfer them to my computer, which we did this week. That's just one of many examples of ways CVI works to support the library. I did propose a slight increase because our contract is due for renewal. Many libraries use CVI. It's a reputable service provider. If we need to re-up a contract, we may need to provide a slight increase due to inflation. But that is the context for my recommendation here. And I'll also say too, I was talking to Kathy, for next year, anytime there's a slight increase due to possible contract increases, I will have hard and fast numbers for you about how these contracts will increase. Having done that research ahead of time, I just haven't been able to do that on day 6. So I really want to provide you all with the most information that you possibly can have with making these decisions. It's really important.
I think you're doing a wonderful job, Kate.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Any discussion or questions with 41300?
Nope.
No.
Okay. The next line is 41350, legal and accounting. A total was budgeted a couple of years ago of 2,000. That said, legal services have been utilized a few times in the last year. Though unexpected, it's possible that the budget of 1,500 will be sufficient. Open to any questions or discussion here. I also don't know much about if it's a contract with our legal firm or if it's just as needed. So a lot's for me to learn here too.
I'm pretty certain it's as needed.
Okay.
But I just looked at this. We don't have accounting expenses. Interesting. This line
We don't, because we're through the village, but the name of the expense, the name of the budget line is legal and accounting.
All right.
Renee, were you able to ascertain if we've received any invoices from our attorney over the last 60 days or since November, maybe?
I can certainly ask. I don't know that off the top of my head. But I know that legal has been utilized in the last 60 days, given the board meeting. So I will check on that for you.
And I know,
As I recall, it's kind of, it's not a monthly bill, which you would expect, or as services are,
Mhm.
seems to me it kind of comes both perhaps quarterly and even less frequently than that. I'm sure we'll get something, I would think by the end of the calendar year, but I haven't seen it in signing checks and nobody's mentioned them to me, but
right, because we do have some future expenses. We
Right.
revised a number of our computer policy, Wi-Fi policy.
yeah.
etc.
Yeah, there may be other conversations too. I think even just following up with, I just got the name of our representative, so I can follow up. I also want to ask at some point the board if I need, I'm just assuming I need board approval in order to contact our representation, but I don't actually know that. Every library is different.
Yeah, I would say generally you would, the board.
Or at least board
president-
president.
Yeah, or, a committee decision might be, Renee, can you give them a call? So typically there's some conversation that takes place before that. But of course there might be situations Bonnie's talking about reviewing policies where you're making a routine follow-up conversation. So,
Right.
but typically there is, unless you're investigating us and we don't know about it, I think there would be generally some conversation that prompts you to give them a call.
Absolutely. Any discussion further or questions or adjustment to this budget line?
No.
No.
Okay. Professional development. I am reminded by a comment that Jamie said after the staff day. I think she said this in the last board meeting. Staff recently had a training, and it had been over 2 years or a very long time since they had time to get together and do a learning opportunity as an organization or as a team. And Janie said, that's way too long. And I really think about it from a COVID perspective. There have been other priorities. And I think speaking of someone that's worked with other people in other states, everybody has been at capacity with learning in the last 3 years because of the levels and layers of trauma and secondary, all of that. But what I've experienced just in my first week is staff is really interested in continuing education and learning opportunities. There are more and more in-person opportunities now opening up. And I've already expressed my concern to Martha, who manages a lot of the technology at the library, but I don't think staff, well, I know because I asked, staff have never had any sort of data privacy training. And the reason I bring data privacy up is because as an institution that's responsible for patron data and information and securing patron privacy, there have just been a couple of behaviors that I've been drilled into me, like leaving your computer unlocked, available for anybody to see. Some behaviors that I've seen that really could be amended if the proper education was provided. And given our current circumstance of just any organization, public or private sector, the amount of data leaks or potential risk because of potential issues coming up with data or internet security as a public entity, we just can't run the risk of that. So I'm a little concerned about the knowledge or lack thereof among staff right now, but that's just one area of focus I'd like to provide for them with learning. I've also included something that's been recommended to me called Directors University, which is a week-long training. It requires an application, not everyone's accepted. But it is for new public library directors in Illinois, supported by our state library organization, our consortium, and the state library. So that is the context for the increase of professional development line, and I'm open to any questions or discussion.
I think this is great. applaud the initiative to invest more in our staff development, given that it's coming in at under 1% of salaries. Seems remarkably appropriate.
Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. There's this makes me reflect since COVID, and then so since at least since 20, we used to have staff going out to library association meetings in Chicago.
Mhm.
We think
Yep.
there are more things happening, and so it was a way for staff to be together and also to be exposed to
Yes.
the profession. And none of those things have happened. So
Yep.
just catching up on that kind of information and camaraderie is really important. And we need to start trying to work it in as possible.
Bill, any or Bonnie, any additional comments or questions or feedback?
No, as Matt
Okay.
and Kathy said, I think it's a good idea and probably long overdue, as Janie had mentioned earlier.
Thank you all. I think, yeah, I taught my first semester as adjunct professor at a graduate level program just last year. And I have to say, especially in libraries, we are in the business of learning. So at any level of libraries, library work, we should be learning about how to improve our service to the community. So I really appreciate that. The next line is 42440 dues. I'll provide context that libraries are not all paying dues anymore. So I was really pleased to see that Lake Bluff even provides support for our organizations, such as Illinois Library Association, a front runner in advocacy, and a lot of support to libraries across the state. I also learned that not all department heads knew that they were able to get their memberships reimbursed. And so we helped share that information at department heads so that everyone can have their memberships reimbursed. Excuse me, I'm just gonna take a sip of water. No change to this budget line. The total is sufficient for the current staff that receive dues. I will tell you too, there's also no parameters as to who gets their dues reimbursed. It's been whoever asks policy, and I will be providing a little bit more guidelines for that. But any questions or discussion here?
No.
Matt, Kathy?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
That's okay, thank you. Okay, the next line, 43230, utilities. A very big, broad line that covers a variety of utility fees. I was going to decrease this up until a couple days ago. Actually, it was just yesterday when I talked to Bettina, but I brought it back up a little bit more. So the 12,000 is my current recommendation. The biggest piece is the impervious surfacing that is taking place in Village of Lake Bluff. Bettina mentioned there's going to be a new annual fee for property owners, and the cost will depend on zoning. We are our own zone, so our costs will be very specific as opposed to other zones where it's going to be an average cost across the whole zone. But anyway, I asked specifically what she recommended we budget for. She anticipates it'll be slightly under 2,000, if not even more. But she said 2,000 would be an adequate budget for this expenditure.
Can we opt out?
Can you say that again?
Can we opt out?
No.
I
No,
guess it's just a
unfortunately.
boondoggle. We're going to imperviously cover all. We've got enough stormwater problems already. Look at that impervious thing they put across Green Bay called the elementary school. That's half of our water problems.
I'm kind of surprised to see that we're being billed for this. We don't pay electric, we don't pay gas, but so we've been free of a lot of utilities in the village. And Bonnie, I chuckled when I read Bettina or Renee's comments, because if you remember last year, the discussion about the village plan for the Adirondack chairs and the impervious surface they wanted to add to our property. Yeah, I mean, I know, Matt, it's the newest buzz in town. There's going to be some public meetings about it, but the whole point is that they hope that it will offset. I don't know, I guess I don't know what the name of it is, but it's whatever is necessary for some of the flooding issues. But I am kind of surprised that it's including the, like, what about the schools? Schools are, they're tremendous, I guess, if you now are violating an impervious surface, but, and is the village paying it for village property? And it's kind of an interesting topic.
I don't know, but I'd be glad to ask more.
Well,
Bettina says,
there's gonna be a lot of public meetings in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so.
yes,
Yes.
but any additional follow-up you'd like me to do with Bettina directly before then, I'd be glad to do it.
I'm glad we were able to budget in a timely manner, and then we'll see how it works out.
Me too. I told Bettina, I said, as soon as she mentioned this, and actually Katie said she made note of it a couple of meetings ago that it was mentioned, and so I'm glad we were able to get it in there.
Yeah.
Additional changes, internet service is increasing. I heard the story of the library not having phone services for 5 days. I don't know if anyone on the board knew about this, but it was quite the debacle as it was described to me. And a lot of what ensued after the situation was conversations between Eric and the company to try and get the credit back for loss of 5 days of service, and they never provided that credit. So, I mean, that in and of itself makes me feel like it is time to explore new opportunities. So I wanted to just share that because Granite was the lowest cost option for the library at the time of their research. There were others, of course, with additional cost. So I wanted just to say that, you know, that's another reason why I increased the budget more than I thought I needed to. It's still not an increase, but that's why.
When does the contract expire?
In November, I believe, 23.
Okay.
So we have to be within their, you know, with their service until then. I mean, but I can also do some research to see what it would be like to break the contract early. I don't know if it's fiscally responsible to do that. Thankfully, nothing else has happened since this situation arose.
Did they indemnify us for our service outages?
Not that I know, but I can follow up on that.
Well, it may be a negotiating point when you talk with them.
Yeah, I agree.
These
Well, and then
CLECs, I'm very familiar with this industry. We had one of my favorite whipping posts, Access One, as a previous provider. So I was interested, I joined the board around the time this change was made. So I was interested in how this panned out. Initially, it was much lower, although it took a little time for us to realize the savings. But I was unaware of the service outages, which for any extended period seems unconscionable.
Yeah, agreed. Actually, now that you bring up Access One, Martha did say that was another provider they had been looking at. Maybe that was around the time where you got on the board, and they were more expensive.
Yeah, and I think they maybe predated Granite. I think they
Okay.
were working with Access One at one point.
We may go back to them then. Who knows? Any discussion, questions about this budget line?
No.
No.
Kathy?
No, I'm sorry. No.
Okay. No, you're fine. Thank you. Postage. I think the reason for this increase, and I can follow up again, but this is based on Martha and other staff recommendation, is to increase this budget line. I think this is because of passports, and that would make sense to me. Mailing costs are increasing, and as it says here, the passport program. So this was the number that they gave to recommend. I can look back at the spreadsheet really quickly here. Postage here, and just give you a sense of the last few years really quick. Okay, so postage is going to be, where are you, buddy? Okay, here, which
Yeah.
you can definitely see even in our Eric's estimate based on costs that he was seeing at the time. That was $6,000, and 21, 22, that was already $6,000 too. So did you add the passport program somewhere between 21 and 22?
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Would it be last
Last year, wasn't it?
year? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this was the first fiscal year, full fiscal year, first full, I can't even say it.
No, you're fine.
Yes, yes.
And that makes sense based on the numbers here and based on everything Katie was saying before about the cost of mailing.
Except I don't really understand this. I talked to Katie about this a few weeks ago and about the whole passport thing. So you get a passport, there's a $35 benefit to the library. From that 30, but the patron is paying the cost of the postage within their fee. And then the library is batching several applications into an envelope and taking them to the library. So I guess it's just one way or the other, but wouldn't we better account for passport income by deducting the cost of, that's our only expense. So we deduct the cost of process of mailing from that $35 times whatever and have a more realistic income from passports rather than adding on to postage.
But I think I know, but I would want Katie, and I can follow up for you, Kathy. But we still need to, on the front end, pay to get the passports out into the mail to the receiving agency. Like there's still that initial cost on the front end, even though we get reimbursed with other funds.
Well, I'll kind of yield to Bill and Matt, whether I'm
Right.
over-
No, it's a valid point, but they're coming from two different transactions. So we're getting the revenue from the passports at $35 a piece,
Yeah,
but from another account, we're paying the expense of the postage, which could be 1, 2, 3, 4, even 5 passports at a time. So
Right.
just for argument's sake, $10 or $5 per passport. We might pay $5 for 5 passports. So now we've got $175 and we're paying $10 postage, or we're paying 35, we're getting 35 and paying 10. So it's just a way of keeping the two balanced. There's no, if it was a case that for every passport is $5 in postage, we could probably do that, but
okay,
it's not going to be the case. So it's just offsetting accounts.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. As long as you guys are fine with it, it's fine with
Yeah.
me.
I mean, I like the idea. I think it makes it
Yeah.
cleaner in terms of being able to assess, much like the copier, are we getting revenue
Yeah.
to offset the costs?
Yeah.
I don't think there's a concern here, but it would be nice to shine a little more light on it. So I don't know if there's the ability to add another ledger item, which is like postage dash passport.
Or just, well, yeah, I mean, either add it all into postage or have a net passport.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't mean to get picky on it. It jumped out at me as, are we already, do
Right.
we,
Well, I mean, it could be more transparent in terms of what we're doing financially, because right now it looks like we're sending a lot of mail, and we are, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
right?
Yeah. And the same could be said for the photocopier as well, where it's really, we're not generating revenue if we're spending $4,000 to generate $2,000 worth of photocopy charges. So it's,
Well, and I'd like to say Lake Bluff Public Library has been historically very print heavy. I'm hoping to help change that. So maybe that will have some lasting effect.
you don't want to see my desk then.
I'm literally writing notes as we speak.
Right,
I have
right.
nothing wrong with paper.
Right.
That's good. Really valid discussion. Do you want me to explore the potential of adding another ledger, or at least ask more questions about why it was set up this way? We can hold on this.
Yeah, I'm okay with me personally, I'm okay the way it's set up. If we wanted to put a separate line item as far as postage for passports, and maybe that's something that you can talk to Katie and
I will.
Martha about if it's significant. I mean, but it is generating a lot of revenue in there, and it does need to be offset in these expense part. And it'd be good to know, okay, we've got 18,000 in passport fees, but 2,000 in postage. Our net is 16, and we could, if it was broken down into two items, we'd be able to see that straight away.
Yeah.
Okay. Good discussion, recommendation. And it's just, as I said, I think it's just better transparency for the community, for the public, about where our money's going. Okay, I will follow up on that. Anything else with, and I'll get back to the Word document. Anything else with postage?
No.
No.
Matt, and anything from
Oh,
you?
I'm sorry.
All right, so newsletter, printing. I'll just start here, and Kathy had a question in her Google Doc, and I will tell you I did some research prior to this meeting to get really good answers for you, or hopefully good, at least factual. The cost of the newsletter continues to increase, and some of the staff feedback initially was to describe to you the recent change in the newsletter with regards to the summer, winter, and reading clubs. They were redesigned so that one of the pages was actually the tear out log, and that has amounted to substantial and measurable increase in participation. So with regards to Matt and Bill, did you see Kathy's comment in the Google Doc, or
Yes.
should we?
No, I'd seen. I think Kathy's note to investigate. Some of the things that she put in there.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to bypass in case you needed that time to contextualize what I'm going to share next.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop sharing screen so that I have better access to this document. I asked Jill and Martha much more about the newsletter. And a lot of what they talked about was data. So the newsletter is the #1 way people hear about programming. We continue to see that. I'm reading their feedback here. We continue to see that in all of our patron satisfaction surveys we've done, including the most recent one in 2022. Of the 114 responses we received, scrolling, 77 said that they hear about programming through the newsletter, which is approximately 70%. I asked, is the newsletter printed and mailed to every Lake Bluff resident? And they said yes. And a side note, if we did want to look at reducing costs, that could be something we consider, because that is, 6,000, 7,000 more items than we would want to print if we wanted to save. Other feedback they gave, we do see this play out in the program registration data. When we ask them how they hear about programming, the newsletter continues to be the #1 place that they hear about programming. Of course, inflation and increase in cost of goods and services affects here too. Also, the cost of paper globally in 2022, that is a significant cost as well. The other side of this, and I thought this was an interesting way of talking about it, and I think it's worth bringing up. The money that we put into the newsletter supports money that we put into other services. And it's about awareness of the library, our programming, and so forth. This was Martha, and I can appreciate this piece of feedback, because I also think that we could do a better job talking about and marketing what the library does besides programming. Programming is a huge piece, but it's not for everybody in the community. So if we did want to promote the license renewal service, for example, we could do that in the newsletter. Lastly, Kathy notes that the newsletter increased since the time she was on the board. Additional context, in 2011, the newsletter was 6 pages only. And then it was increased because we were offering more programs. 6 pages was too small. This accounts for some of the price difference. In 2018, we added Adobe stock image subscription. So that's to add all the photos and the graphics. That gets paid for out of this line as well, although it represents about $300 in cost. And then the added tear out for winter reading and summer reading was added in 2019. So since 2011, annually, because the newsletter is quarterly, we've added 12 more pages to print each year since 2011. So I wanted to provide, also a lot of this was my learning, but I wanted to provide that context for additional questions and discussion for this budget line.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, happy to do it, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we are measuring it, and that's a very good point, that it really is a program it's a catalog now, really not a newsletter. And
you know, Jill and Martha said they've wanted to do more than just a program catalog for a while. And I think, you know, now is a good time to think about ways we can revamp things. I would like to see what the number 2 way is that people hear about programs. I wonder if it's through our website. But, you know, for comparison, Dakota County Library, my last library, we decided to do away with the print catalog because it was an exorbitant amount of staff time and cost. Now that is a 450,000 population and we did not mail, but I am interested in evaluating how much time goes into the development of this. I don't know yet. Yeah, I think so. And then I also know that my position didn't have a lot of contribution to the newsletter in terms of review, and that's a lot of my background. So, you know, there could be, you know, a different distribution of responsibilities here. All that to say, it's always important to evaluate any increase, and I'm really glad that you asked, Kathy.
Well, I noticed this fall with without having a full-time director, obviously staff was really stretched, and I asked Martha or Jill about something once, and when I went back for a follow-up, they said, well, we've been involved in the newsletter, and it was the first time I realized how much time it takes 2 people to produce this, a significant amount of time, and is that being, you know, looked at, and how is the rest of staff accommodating everyone else working on that? So a lot of things to think about it for one little newsletter. And then of course, it also, we receive as a homeowner here, I receive it online as well. So I typically am trained to respond to that. Although I read and I'm impressed with the print copy. I remember a few years ago, I asked if there was any way to ask, could patrons opt out of one or the other, preferably the print, to reduce the number, but just questions for the whole topic sort of thing. Nothing that would
legitimate. I've been in the process of learning about process improvement for the last 6 years. There's a methodology called Kaizen, and it's literally about process improvement and ways to evaluate every step that you're doing to improve the process. And one of the things I already recommended was, well, what if we just had 4 different templates of design for each of the 4 seasons based on our branding or however they're designed? So there's a lot of design work that goes into that. I mean, they're beautiful, but the amount of design work is heavy. And I think that would significantly cut down on staff time. And then of course, you know, the responses were what they were. But I think it's just one example of ways that I think staff are going to be encouraged to think more intentionally now. Because if they're...
I think also, excuse me, Renee.
No, go for it.
Somehow monetizing staff time to produce it as well as the cost of, so we're talking $12,000, and then if we're talking two people, several weeks
Yeah.
that's a lot of, that's a very expensive newsletter.
Yeah, there needs to be some evaluation of how many hours goes towards this area of your work per week, how many hours goes to this area of your work per week, and of course, what do you do for your job? And what is the
Yeah.
job description, so we can evaluate all this a little
Yeah.
bit more analytically. I completely agree. I think these are
Yeah.
questions that staff have not been asked before or in a while, and I think they're really good, and they will be asked these questions more often
Mhm.
now. So I think it's just some of the learning on their end, and Martha was able to provide all this information very quickly, so I
answers, sure.
appreciate that.
Definitely. Thank you very much for inquiring.
Sure, absolutely. I'm gonna pull up the budget again, or the Word document. Any further discussion with this budget line?
No,
No,
Kathy?
No, I'm sorry. No.
No, you're fine. Okay. Office supplies. There's no decrease recommended. There's no change to this office supply budget. Normally, I would look real hard at decreasing a line like this. But I'll just be honest to say there are some items that I've needed to purchase even in the first week for my office. I'm trying to minimize those items. But no change to this budget line. And again, I should have put it in the Word document. I apologize. 7,000. Any discussion or questions here?
no,
no,
Okay. Building and ground supplies. This is based on current and experienced expenses. Not purchasing a lot. However, I did identify the building survey results could potentially bring up something that is needed for building and ground supplies. Even a motion detector light that we can slap on the side of the wall outside the staff entrance. So I did increase minimally to 1,750, or proposed an increase. Any questions or discussion there? Oops, I went too high.
You'll
No.
pick up a lot of raccoons moving around too.
Oh, good to know. I appreciate the heads up.
And maybe even an occasional coyote, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Good to move on?
yes,
yes,
Okay, thank you. 43668, technical services supplies, no additional cost increase recommended here. And so the amount here, 17, oh, excuse me, am I misspeaking? Hold on one second. Did I?
no, this
Technical
one,
services supplies. I'm
668.
looking at the wrong one. Sorry about that. Yeah. Yep, so that is a flat budget. No changes recommended here. 5,500. Any questions or discussion?
no,
No,
Okay, Kathy?
No.
Okay. Hospitality services 43700. I did propose a slight increase here. There may be opportunities. I would love more opportunities to continue to welcome the community members as I'm getting to know them throughout the year. I remember there was a question during the director search at one of the board meetings that we don't generally have a ton of hospitality budgeted, but I also don't know what other anticipated events might be happening. One example could potentially be hosting Reading Between the Ravines planning meeting at the library. There's a new director that's going to be coming in to Lake Forest Library, TBD. Even hosting a school district meeting and inviting teachers and school districts, school staff, things like that. But I don't know what's historically been done with this line. So open to any discussion and feedback here.
Um, actually, maybe we could talk about it with Bonnie and on Thursday, but it's never been clear to me, for instance, like we just hosted a holiday pizza party. And in the past, we've had like a staff, before COVID, staff luncheon that we brought in from Bluffington's. Those kind of things happen. And I think some of it is trustees are kind of absorbing the costs, but I kind of
Oh,
think
no.
I kind of think when something is happening, it should be paid for.
Yes, 100%.
And
Mhm.
so that line and the purpose of it should be understood.
100%. I'm looking for something, another budget line that maybe I'm not remembering properly. Is this the only budget line that would even remotely relate to those items?
Well, I've always just heard it called hospitality. We've always just handed over to
Mhm.
Laurence, but it just,
Okay, I don't see anything else. But, oh, staff recognition, was there something on staff recognition? Because that was one of my questions too. Let's see, where did you go? Oh, no, that's not right. Okay. So there really isn't any other budget line for what you're describing, Kathy. This would be it. And unless the Friends or the foundation reimburse the board and you don't want it to come out of the budget line, I would never want the board to put their funds
right. I'm just
forward.
thinking events held at the library, some of that, and also just some of that, just outreach. I guess we need to kind of take a.
Yeah.
We can't.
There's some
There's
scoping here, for
Yeah.
example, like if there was a book club happening at the library and a staff member were to buy, coffee and cookies or whatever, would that, it looks like that comes out of this budget line because it says supplies for library programs.
Okay.
But then it could also be the hospitality that you're speaking of, or staff recognition, which I think is missing here. Any other questions, additional discussion?
No.
No.
Okay. Outreach supplies. Kathy had questions in her document, and I also had the opportunity to have an additional conversation with Jill, our outreach coordinator, department head. I apologize for not knowing her exact title. What I was looking for was exactly what Kathy was asking for, which is concrete outputs and items that we are using with this budget. And what I learned is that any program that we host with a community partner, maybe you all know this already, but I just wanted to clarify. Any program we host with a community partner where we are providing them an honorarium or we are paying the presenter, that comes out of outreach. That does not come out of programs. That comes out of outreach.
Oh.
So another piece of this pie is the Reading Between the Ravines program. Again, every year we pay $1,500, which is about half of the cost of the author. There is interest among staff, specifically Jillian, to increase that cost so that there is a little bit more what she described as level playing field to help collaborate and plan cooperatively together between the two libraries. I really think new leadership at that library will also help with some of that. But at the same time, her solution and Eric's has been to discuss increasing their contribution to that partnership to have more collaboration there. Other things she said that cost money, author in-house programs, and that is true across the board for libraries. Vendors and presenters for programs are increasing their costs, whether it's travel that is costing more money or just in general their own cost of living. And the author program, Reading Between the Ravines, is an example of something that would get charged out of this line. Other partnerships, Eloa Farms, excuse me if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
That's right.
Okay, oh, great. You know, we hosted 2 programs with them recently, $150. And there's going to be additional partnerships with Davy Tree Expert Company that we would be paying them as well. In addition, and I don't know if Kathy or anyone has this, but Jill in September put together a list of all the incoming money that she receives as part of her budget, and was asked to create a list for either the in-kind donations, coupons for prizes, or gift cards for prizes that the library receives from these community partners. She quantified all of that, and it brought in over $10,000. And she doesn't know if that was ever shared, but she'd be glad to have that shared again, or she can develop something for 2022.
All right,
To do.
that came from my request at the foundation meeting in October.
Okay.
I've never seen that.
Okay, we'll get that to you.
And there was some in the discussion, there was some disagreement as to what a donation is. For example, that trivia night, if you win a round of trivia, you get a coupon for a free beer. I don't know that that's a donation to the library. It's more of a marketing part. You know, the brewery gets you back another night for a beer, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, I think we need to take a good look. But I'm happy that she was able to compile this. I've just never, and I don't know what happened with the follow-up on that, but I'm glad that it's done, and I very much enjoy going through it. So
Yes, I'll make sure you get that right away. She even asked to send it tonight, and I said, let me just go over the things, and yeah, so we'll get you that information. And then, you know, just a couple of my own thoughts, I think, and this isn't anything that Jill doesn't already know, because we're having these conversations regularly. And it goes along with job descriptions and scope. We don't have a clear definition at Lake Bluff about what outreach is, and what our priorities for outreach are. You know, if we were Chicago Public Library serving inner city youth, we would have a completely different outreach program than, you know, Lake Bluff. But what does outreach mean at Lake Bluff, and how is the money budgeted, and how is it used? There were questions, you know, I typically see an outreach budget and I think swag, you know, items like pens, paper, you know, and I was told that that gets paid out of a different budget. So there's a lot of honing of the scope of the work here, and developing of a common understanding. I think we all, and I really just tried to explain, you know, we all value the outreach, we value the job, and it's an important piece of the library, because that awareness, you know, I sent that article about Pew Report. People do not know what libraries offer. They think books and that's it. And there's so much more there, and outreach is essential for getting people to understand what the library offers, and in partnering with our communities, you know, bringing business to those community partners, and in a very collaborative way. But all that said, the recommendation was to increase based on all of that, and so that was the proposed expenditure, draft expenditure here for this line. So any further discussion or questions?
yeah, I really apologize, but there's just a few more questions.
Please, yeah.
The description of this talks about targeting underserved segments of the community. What are those, and how are we targeting them? And are we accounting for that? Because as I pointed out, many of the grants and public funds available to libraries, the first key word is underserved and so forth. And if we're really doing something with those communities, it may open up doors for us. But I also think it's a term that's overused sometimes and not really appropriate. So what, if you could give that some context, I'd appreciate it.
Well, and I'll be frank that I don't know how it's been defined at Lake Bluff. When you think about underserved communities in an affluent neighborhood such as Lake Bluff, I think about you know, people with disabilities. That's actually how I got started in the work that I do or have done, there are people with disabilities in every community, regardless of economic background. And there are barriers to equity and their experiences. And so that is definitely under the scope of underserved, regardless of if there is wealth in your community or not. You know, it could be potentially your business community. Kathy and I discussed, you know, so many opportunities to market and promote the library to our business partners. Do you all offer library cards to your business owners, you know, as a business card? You know, can they access the library materials and services as a business owner? And then can you promote some of those resources that are specifically catered to their needs? That to me might be
Good
underserved.
idea, sure.
So, you know, it may not always be the groups that come off the top of your head, you know, as you're thinking about, you know, inner city schools or inner city libraries, but there are underserved or people that don't know about the library and its services. And just in the ways that there's always a group of your community that, or like if we were a business or private sector, who's not buying our product, you know, in the same way libraries, who doesn't know about us, or are there perceptions and barriers to the library that we're not aware of? And I think, you know, our survey results that were done this summer is going to help us figure those out. So I'm not really answering your question with specifically Lake Bluff answers, just to provide some answers that could potentially fit Lake Bluff in the future once we have some of those discussions and scope those out.
Well, I'd like to spend a little more time with this when you and I meet on Thursday.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Terrific.
And I
Thank
put that on our agenda. I had a feeling there might be some follow-up discussion from the committee meeting, so that's on the agenda already.
you so much.
Will do.
One question here. So the budget in 22 fiscal year is 5,500. We're proposing increasing it to 6,500, but our experience in fiscal year 22 looks like it's going to come in around 8,100. So were there anomalies there, or is it part of like your rehoning that you feel will get that in?
Well, can you correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy? Was some of the foundation work in outreach, like the birthday bash, was that fiscal year 20?
Birthday bash had nothing to do with the foundation.
Oh, thank you for correcting me.
There was a stipend, if you will, of $2,000. The birthday bash committee made to the library, which Katie told me at the last board meeting has been paid. I don't know where it showed up, but there's $2,000, but that's not an outreach number or dollar or line item at all.
So, and it's about how it was coded. I literally don't know the answer to that question, Matt. So I will look into that. Yeah.
That's why I asked at the last board meeting, because I said, where's the money? And Katie said, I thought it was 1,000. It was 1,000 the first year. I guess this year was 2,000.
1,000 for the birthday bash.
Yeah.
Let me check my notes. I thought Jill had said something about the birthday bash. Maybe I just didn't read it. Okay. No money was spent. No money that we spend goes to the birthday bash, which is paid for by the Lake Bluff birthday party committee, except for the glow sticks to the library that has provided to get attendance statistics, and that was really only about $2,000. So correct, just confirming what Kathy was saying. I don't know what that extra $2,000 was. I can certainly look into that for you.
Well, the 2,000 was paid to us.
No, so if you, I'm gonna, it's because I'm not sharing, I apologize, my screen. The expenditure here.
The glow sticks was two grand. That's a lot of glow sticks.
200. So here's what Matt was referring to. We budgeted for 22. I'll zoom in a little bit more. We budgeted for, why is it all weird and pixelated? We budgeted for 5,500 for outreach supplies. We spent at the time of Eric's 8,000. And so Jill is asking just for 1,000 increase from this number, but I do not know, to your question, why this number is so high. I will get the answer to that.
The actual.
That's why I was thinking, is it something we paid for and then got reimbursed for? you know, we just fronted the money and then maybe a gift or something was after, but I don't know. I'll look into it.
I had absolutely
Yeah.
no idea. I really think we're gonna have to start looking at some, I mean, is anybody, Matt or Bill, are you on the outreach committee?
I'm not.
Bonnie?
No, no.
Because I don't know that this is coming out of any committee approval, discussion, encouragement.
Right.
And that's pretty much how we operate things here.
Right.
Right.
Well,
And go ahead, Bill, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, I've got the revenue expenditure report from the end of October. And on the
Oh, thank you.
outreach supply account, we've spent through the end of November, 2765. So I don't know where the 897 number is valid. It's on a budget of 5,500, but year to date through November, it's 2765. So
Are you there, everyone?
Yeah,
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just checking.
yeah. So
Well, and
so that number, the 8097, might not be a valid number if it's
well, and I will be totally honest that this is what I'm, you know, this is
Yeah.
what I was given to work with. And so I agree with you. I don't know what this number is. And it sounds like even in our own expenditure report, we're in no way near that. You said
Yeah.
October,
end of November.
end of
So,
November even.
Yeah, so we'll see next week, hopefully, where it was through the end of the year. But given that, yeah, we're just a hair over at the 5,500 pace. So with
Well, and I do know staff just haven't had the capacity to do what they've been doing as outreach in the last
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah.
That said, we still need to hone in the definition of outreach. I would also say that, you know, a lot of this comes, to me, it relates to long-range planning. We
Yeah.
don't have any strategic plan that gives direction of the library, whether tactical, you know, or like work plan in terms of like, what are some of the things that we're going to accomplish, concrete things we can check off. And then we also don't have kind of an updated mission, vision, goals at all. I think our vision or our mission statement is from 2013. And, you know, that could be an opportunity for us to really, you know, as a new board at some point in the next year, look at, okay, who are we and what do we want to accomplish for what Lake Bluff is in 2023-24? That could be something worth doing. And then how does outreach come under that? It's hard, you know, I'm asking questions among staff to tell me why it is they're doing things and what direction they've been given and the purpose of their work. And without a lot of these things, it's hard to see how their work rolls up to larger picture. And so part of me wants to start kind of macro, and then, but then we also can't waste time. We need these job descriptions. We need to scope their work now so that, you know, we're intentional about selecting opportunities to say yes and no to. All that to say, I'm sorry this number is not what I thought it was, but I guarantee you next year's budgeting process will be much better, more accurate.
Last question on outreach. Did you say that
Yes.
that program presenters, speakers are being paid out of the outreach budget?
So yes and yes. And also the way that statistically we count program statistics, they're not always count as outreach. I started asking these questions today and, you know, with Jill this afternoon, and I really kind of, you know, got into this spiral in my head because there's no consistency about how we're counting
Right.
programs in the building versus out of the building or just outside the building. What do we count as outreach on our calendar statistically? I mean, because it should match how we're spending our money. And then that's what I was trying to say to Jill, which is, you know, we're not giving an accurate reflection or we're not telling the right story in our statistics, even if we're counting them as adult programs, but really these are outreach events, you know. So again, I just think that there's a lot of like cleanup and clarification as I'm uncovering more information about it. And what are our goals? What are we trying to do? Is awareness our number one goal for outreach? Is supporting community partnerships and building a thriving community of Lake Bluff? Is that our goal of outreach? You know, is it to serve underserved groups? You know, I don't know if these questions have answers currently at Lake Bluff, but library, but
Well, I think
um,
you wrapped it up a moment ago. Cleanup and clarification is what we
yeah,
have to do
Mhm.
now. And then
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
figure out what we're doing.
Yeah.
yes. What are we doing now? What do we want to do there?
Yeah.
And
All
what it
right.
costs. So thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay.
If I could just put the
So-
pace of bee in your bonnet too, with regard to outreach, there are numerous students, I assume at the high school level even, but certainly at the middle and elementary school, who are really struggling with reading, that went down a rabbit hole after during COVID and have picked up their PlayStation at the expense of a book ever since. I don't know if it's appropriate or, you know, how we would message it, but if there is a way to partner with the schools, and certainly we have advocates, Carrie and others within the school administration, to identify those students and bring them as an outreach program. I think that, you know, in the context of our demographics, that may be a very good
Mhm.
outreach target.
I completely agree, Matt. And you know what you're citing, I mean, that research is true nationwide about reading levels and even just interest in reading, just due to everything of the last 3 years. That would definitely, in my background, be considered outreach. You know, who are we literally reaching out to try and bring to the library that may not have heard or thought of or feels like they can belong at the library? And that serves a community need. You know,
Yeah.
that is a very clear through line to me about impacting positive change in community. And so, yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah, who in our community is struggling, and can the library help to alleviate that struggle? And the struggle doesn't have to be financial.
Right.
Right, exactly. I think that's a really great way of saying it.
You know, a year ago when Jenny, or maybe 2 years now, joined the board, one of her hopes was that she could put together a volunteer program, and
Mm,
struggled to get that done. And then different reasons, mostly health, just we couldn't quite bring people in and all that. But as I'm thinking about Nat's comments, if the library could be a conduit of volunteers to the schools for literacy tutoring, that would be
mhm.
a tremendous. I think you would get the volunteers for that because it's defined, and you know it would have to be set up appropriately for a lot of reasons with the schools. But it could be a really, really wonderful opportunity for everybody.
I don't want to take too much time. I know we're
Right.
already a long meeting anyway, but some of my background in youth services is creating a program called Reading Buddies, which is a volunteer-run program with local high school teens, being mentors to young children, kindergarten through second grade, who are struggling with, you know, enthusiasm or just struggling in confidence with reading. And it's a weekly program. It brings those two together at the library, and the teens are trained in how to support reading. And it's not, I mean, it's different from what you suggested, Kathy. It's not tutoring, but what can happen is, you know, this peer relationship with someone older and who can, you know, in the community and who can really bring passion and enthusiasm to reading. And on the other hand, you know, that's a lot of what is struggling, like why kids struggle is the motivation.
Sure.
It's not all of it, but it's the motivation. And you know, some of that social learning that those teens need that they always
Right.
need, that's really valuable too. I see a lot of possibilities. And yeah, I've done programming at my last library called Homework Help. Anyway, that was a volunteer tutor run program. And so, yes, basically, yes.
Great idea.
All right. So the next line is 41345, marketing. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit longer. So just to wrap up, Kathy and I are going to follow up conversation on Thursday about the proposed budget line for outreach.
Right.
Great discussion, everybody. Thank you. The recommendation is 500, no change. That would be sufficient for 23-24. And this covers a variety of marketing materials. I was actually surprised it was this low for a library such as ours, but if staff recommend it, then I'm going to support their recommendation. I do think we might see increases here just based on servicing and cost for materials in future, but happy to support this. Any questions or discussion here?
No.
No.
Okay. Adult programming supplies. This does cover adult programs also, citing what I said before. Outreach programs are funded by outreach services, and adult programs are funded by adult program supplies, or the actual supplies needed for programming. The current budget of 8,000 should be sufficient for 23-24. This is for budget line 43710.
Yeah.
Any questions or discussion here?
No.
Kathy?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. So in respect to adults, 43720 is juvenile program supplies. The budget of 7,000 should be sufficient based on Eliza Jarvie's recommendation for 23-24.
Okay.
Any questions or discussion?
No.
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 Teen programs 43740, no change to this budget recommendation or this expenditure, excuse me. 1250 is budgeted for the coming fiscal year.
Okay.
Any questions or discussion?
Just one quick question. So we had no teen programming, or did we have? We had just had.
We
limited
just
teen-
had a teen program last week, actually.
Okay.
But my understanding is with actually a lot of libraries, the trying to bring teens back to the library, a lot of libraries are experiencing, because teens now were upper elementary school, during COVID. And so they may not have had the same experience with libraries. No, I think that her staff are doing a great job to try and bring teens back. And they're certainly in the community during nice weather. I'm told that they're just out and about. So yes, we are offering teen programs, not as frequent as youth programs, but you won't see teen programs as frequent as youth programs at any library. They're just not as much. I'm also very interested in supporting teens academically through programming. I don't know if we've ever done anything like SAT, ACT prep programming, job skill development, anything like that. But I have lots of questions about how we've done youth programming in the past, just like I have for adults. So, but current budget wise, no change for the recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Now we move into collections, 45000. The majority of these are no change recommended for the proposed expenditure for the fiscal year 23-24. And I don't have much, if any, notes beyond what's listed here. I've just included what the department heads have identified. And so I do want to say, just as a broad comment to any collection budget line, we have a software program called Collection HQ. I don't know if it's come up in discussion at all, but it helps evaluate how often a material circulates, when was it purchased, and how many times has it gone out. It even has a definition of what grubby is, which means after a certain amount of circulations, based on the year that the item was added to the collection, items can be determined as grubby and are encouraged weeding. So staff regularly use that tool to evaluate their collection. So more weeding is always needed, but based on collection development and ordering, these are their recommendations. So I could just go through these quickly, or as a group. What do you all recommend?
I mean, I'm just looking through we may be able to do as a group, just looking through the budget sheet here, it looks like the only one with any meaningful change is the ebook.
Yeah.
Which is going up about 10%, which makes sense. I encourage that.
And I can also highlight a couple of other changes. I know Eliza Jarvie, I always appreciate a librarian that's going to decrease their budget by $500. It sounds nominal, but that means that they're really particular and they don't need that money. So juvenile reference, which is our databases specifically for kids. They no longer are subscribing to one of the resources. I can pull up my notes in a second. And so she decreased her budget there. I'm going to pull up my notes again and see if there's anything of significance worth mentioning. Kathy, I know you had a question about e-reference.
Yeah, you've answered it. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Sure. Or yeah, Katie was super helpful with that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? It sounds like you're eager to do it or open to doing it as a group. I'll go to the ebook, and Anna was helpful in determining that budget as well. I will tell you, for the last couple of years, I've learned that Lake Bluff has used the per capita grant for ebooks. So this isn't the only funding that goes to ebooks in the library. They have used per capita grant for ebooks as well in the past. Ebooks. Yes, and what she says here, it's absolutely true in experience at other libraries nationwide. And what I'm pleased to say is ebook usage because of or as a result of, probably is a better way of phrasing it, because of COVID, that resulted in a lot of people becoming aware of that service, and it will only increase, I think.
But you know, it's interesting that the demand has gone up, but the service and the swift delivery of books has gone up considerably. I'm a big user of it. I think it's wonderful. I get so many compliments in the community because people thought, I really thought with a small library it would take months and months and months, and it isn't the case. So kudos to everyone here. And if we need to put more money into that, I know the per capita in the past has some guidelines, and so Eric was keen to use it for. But if we need to beef that line up, we should do so as well, because it's.
I'll be sure to pass that along. Thank
Yeah.
you. And honestly, the platforms have come along so much in the last 10 years. I don't know how long you all have been ebook users, but 10 years ago when I was in libraries, they were pretty awful and hard to use. So they've become so much easier. Any other discussion or questions? I'm going to look through. I'm basically going to end here 45520 trending titles. Any questions or changes or discussions about any of the collection lines until 45520?
No.
Matt?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. 45600 public and staff PC software. I was surprised we have a version of Microsoft Office from 2016. That is one of the reasons I've suggested, or I'm proposing to increase this line. Whether or not we get Microsoft Office 365 or not, I recommend that we have a much more current version of Microsoft Office on both our staff and public computers. One of the things that I'm highlighting here is backwards compatibility issues. I think our community, such as Lake Bluff, everybody has not everybody, a lot of people have the most up-to-date version of a lot of software, including Microsoft Office. And so if anybody were to come into our library and use any of our computers, including our students, and I haven't figured out yet if they're a Mac environment or if they're a PC environment, either way, they would have access to software depending. They wouldn't be able to access their documents from an updated file format on any of our computers. And just from a workability standpoint, I really recommend Microsoft Office be updated. TechSoup is an organization that helps give libraries and public entities significant discounts in technology softwares. And even during our department head meeting, we were able to get a very, very rough estimate of Office. And so I've increased it based on that rough estimate of what that would cost.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. There's probably some security issues as well, especially as those older versions
Yeah.
become unsupported.
Very much agreed, Matt. Yes. Any other questions or discussion with this budget line?
No,
No,
Never mind.
Bill?
no.
Library automation software 45610. This line covers the cost of our ILS, our integrated library software system. So basically what you use to search for books on the public end, and then on the back end, the staff end. Our contract with Innovative, the company that provides our ILS, is going to be ending at the end of this coming fiscal year. So while I am not recommending a budget increase, it is something that I want to mention. Perhaps they may request more before the end of the fiscal year is out, and then provide, information for future. This line may need to be increased based on future costs. Because signing a 10-year contract at the cost that we did was probably financially, is to our benefit financially now, but signing a new contract, I think, will be an increase for next time.
And what does this do? Is this for like reciprocity when we borrow from other libraries, or?
So if you were to go to our library website and you type in to find a book, that software program that where you can view all of the catalog records for every single item that we own, that is what our ILS, or our automation software, is. We are a standalone library, and we do not share a system with other libraries, such as there are consortiums in Illinois called CCS, where they actually, depending on your size of your population, you can share access to the catalog. And you're not having to purchase it on your own. That was one of my questions during my interview with the department heads. I was curious why they were standalone. They said they can't afford getting into the consortium, but our contract is up, so we're going to be evaluating that soon. It might behoove us to sign into the system. We can still share materials through interlibrary loan because we're a member of Rails. So that doesn't prohibit us from still being able to share items, but it's that interface of when you're looking for an item. People that are in consortiums such as CCS, when they go to their library catalog, they can see all of the libraries that own this material, and they can easily request it. And there is a system in addition to Rails called CCS, and it drives materials over to each library. So you're essentially expanding your collection tenfold by being a member of this consortium. My understanding is cost has been prohibitive of that. So we've opted to have our own automation software where we're standalone, and really people can only access in our catalog, our online catalog, our materials. That's not to say they can't request interlibrary loan, which they can. I don't know if that helps understand.
Yeah, that clarifies completely. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Renee, I'd move that from 22 to 23 only because looking at in 21, it was at just under 22. It went up another 500 this year. Anticipate it might go up another 500. So maybe 23 might be a good number to put in
Okay.
there. With.
And I will be completely transparent and say, I don't know yet why, if we're standalone, we end up having increased costs on something that we have a contract for. We should be locked in at a certain price. So that's a little bit of why I did what I did, but at the same time, to your point, just gives us a little flexibility. And now that we know that this green column shouldn't be trusted, I don't know, but I agree with you, just giving us
Yeah.
that flexibility. Okay. So the recommendation is to increase line 45610 to 23,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. Any other questions or discussion here?
No,
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 It's a pretty lengthy process to research an ILS, and so I'm excited that you all we all will have an opportunity to do that. It's something that's really staff driven, and then they make a recommendation to the board because it is such a pricey item. But all right, trying to share screen again.
as an aside, do these consortiums typically perform, like anecdotally, my experience with Rails has been abysmal.
Oh,
Books, not coming through, returning books, and then them not getting back to the originating library. That might just be me. But are these do they operate differently?
yeah, CCS has its own delivery system entirely.
Okay.
I don't know if they rely on Rails for a van delivery service in addition to Rails being able to, because Rails is not just public libraries, Rails is schools. I think it's also academic libraries, and they manage the van system. But CCS has its own, yeah, as I said, delivery system. I will also share that feedback with my friends at Rails. I'm so sorry. Has that been in the last couple of years?
Mhm.
Sorry to hear that.
Maybe it's
think-
just me or the titles I'm picking, but
I think
Well-
Eric told us that this delivery was drastically cut back after
COVID.
COVID. And I don't know if that's recovered yet or not.
So Rails does an introductory meeting with all new library directors so that they can introduce themselves to talk about what it means to be a member of Rails. And Dan Bostrom is someone I've worked with, and he's going to be doing that meeting. During that meeting, I'll be sure to share your feedback, Matt. And I'll ask a little bit about, because I haven't been here for the last 6 years, I'll ask about what the impact of the pandemic has been on Rails. And I mean, that certainly tracks, that makes sense, but it's not okay. So,
yeah, and I only bring it up more for awareness if so as we explore these consortiums, do they have
Yes.
SLAs or some sort of service agreement in terms of?
they do. And CCS has been around for a while. It was around from when I was here in Illinois before, predates me being a librarian actually. So, but they've also grown a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. They've added a lot more libraries, which is only to a member library's benefit to provide more access, quicker access to. But yes, there would be a process of reviewing all of those service agreements and making sure, and there is a cost associated as well. So yes.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, any other discussion or questions about 45610 library automation software?
no.
We will make that change to 23. Okay, thanks, everybody. Miscellaneous expenditures, scrolling down here. I did slightly increase this one also, just due to the unpredictable nature of inflation. I need to figure out a little bit more about what this line is in addition to our contingency. I don't know why we would have two.
Yeah, we haven't got to contingency, but I would take the contingency number out. I think we do that for capital projects and maybe, but I think that I'm not sure why that's there.
Okay. Can you rephrase? You're not sure why miscellaneous expenditure is there or why contingency is there?
Why contingency is there?
Oh, okay. So then, should we propose changes to either line, both?
I'm fine with, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. Just put it all in miscellaneous, Matt? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yep. That's kind of where I was going.
Okay.
Or again, with some of the changes that we've talked about, you may need that 5,000 to go against in some other accounts, but either that or put it into miscellaneous expenditures and make that 7, but look at that 7 with some of the accounts that we've changed, like the library automation software that would go from 22 to 23. Maybe 1,000 comes out of that and goes into there. You know, that sort of
Okay.
thing, Renee.
Yeah, easy. I can make that adjustment. So what I'm hearing from you is you're both recommending to remove contingency or just zero it out.
Yeah, just zero it out.
Okay. So and then add the 5,000 to miscellaneous expenditures
Sure.
or 6100. Okay.
Right, but you'll end up reducing that down when you take some of that miscellaneous expenditure and apply
automation.
it. Yeah, or
Correct.
apply it to some of the other accounts, like the maintenance outside. That would, you know, that one went up 1,500. You may want to take it out of there.
So right, so it will probably the overall will decrease, but we'll be able to balance it out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to make of that. Every library is different. Some people have a contingency specifically for, building projects so that if a unexpected cost comes across and there's a big building project, they have to write a check really quick. But yeah, I wasn't sure. Thank you for that guidance.
Right.
So then I'm going to go ahead and go back to my. Okay. So that covers miscellaneous expenditures. Anything else with that?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you. So now we are on to capital outlay, library furnishings. And so 50100 covers interior furnishing. There is an increase to this line based on staff and also my recommendation. But I'm, open for discussion and questions. One of the pieces of feedback I have here, but listed in the bullet, is just essentially any flexibility needed to accommodate any result of the building survey for interior furnishings if it's needed. And that recommendation is an increase of 1,500 to a total of 6,500. Okay, thanks, Matt.
Does that include consideration for a table to replace the carols?
Yes, the tables are in here.
Okay, good.
But I was also told that they were budgeted this fiscal year. Oh, are you talking about the power tables or are you talking?
Tables.
Yeah.
We got a lot of tables. We have tables ordered for this booth room. We have tables in the foyer area, the general area on the first floor that have to be replaced. And then the carols, which we have just moved, there was staff concern and a lot of concern that we just get rid of the carols and have a table with electric built into it there. That's up to staff to figure that out. But
and thank you for clarifying. So that I was told was budgeted for this year, and I don't know. I need to go through our invoicing and everything. We haven't ordered anything yet, but I
don't recall that.
But I also don't know if there was overage in any library furnishing from this year for the Stroh room. Did the library put money towards the Stroh room at all to support anything?
The furnishings in the Stroh room, I think, are pretty much the foundation. The library is splitting that.
Okay, so there are costs coming from.
Yeah, but that's been covered. We need to talk about that. And this special committee that we're working on, maybe they need to make a final call on the carol table. I don't think anything was ordered because I was told that we were out of
Nothing was ordered.
Okay.
Nothing was ordered. The question is really just, are those power tables coming out of this fiscal year budget or next fiscal year budget? I was under the impression that there was some library budget out of this fiscal year budget to take in for the Stroh room or some tables or something. And that wasn't originally budgeted for, and so then the power tables got moved to next year.
Well, Bill, okay, so the foundation put in 17,000 and then there was
Yeah.
like there was a $7,000 number
Yep.
that's supposed to come in when LFI gets when everything is delivered. So that
That's already,
expense will be paid for, Renee.
And there
So
was at least
almost-
one powered table in that order.
There is one.
Yes,
Yeah, there is one. Or are there
Yeah.
two? I'm not sure.
I think there's just one.
Okay, yeah, because then there's 2 chairs that go along with it.
Right.
So an additional table was not ever discussed until we moved the carols. So it would have to be decided if the funds could be accessed this year. Or I guess, come to think of it, we all kind of said, well, let's wait if necessary till after the fiscal year. So it's a matter of what resources are available on this current budget.
right. So far in
that's-
this, sorry, Renee,
No, you're fine.
we, about nearly 7,500 has been spent into that account already, which is probably the furniture and the Stroh room. But
Okay.
nothing has gone against the next line item, which is 51,200. So again, if there's no projects scheduled for exterior building, we could combine the two maybe and use some of this year's for library furnishings.
Yeah, I also looked at that for the outside lighting, Renee. that you
Yeah,
recommended.
okay.
But I don't think that's going to be $8,000. But we could price that out now and get it scheduled for spring if possible. And if there's anything left, use that for the table. Otherwise, the committee was agreeable to knowing that this might have to be a project for next year.
Yeah.
I will share that transparently staff, because they were told that it would be budgeted for 22, 23, thought it was coming this year. And when I shared information that I thought it would have to wait because of, other costs, there was a lot of surprise because that had been gone into that budget proposal for last year. So if at all possible, I'd love to be able to deliver that table this year, but I need to do more. We need to prioritize. We don't have,
We're talking
like, the
about
building. Go ahead.
you're talking about a table for for the computers that we moved. You're talking about that table.
Correct.
Yeah, there was
You know,
never
the laminate is peeling off
the
and,
peeling tables, yes.
Yeah.
I think we have agreed to get that done this year if there's money. That's
Okay.
separate from the Carol's table.
I
You know,
understand,
Sarah's
yeah,
gonna do a walk through all this, so we'll know what point.
yes. No, and I think that's great. That I was putting in there as a kind of safety, just in case some table did not get covered in fiscal year 22, 23.
Yeah,
Yeah, because and I'm jumping over a number of the projects, Renee, but the computer equipment, we're still getting the firewall stuff done between
Yeah,
now and the end
That
of the
was
year.
I knew someone was going to ask about that. I asked Martha, I said, where is this project in CVI's list of projects for us? And they said they're going to complete it. And I said, can we change and update our ticket to urgent? Because that's a CVI-led project for us in installing the firewall, and that's a heavy ticket item. And I said, otherwise, we're going to lose out on this money we budgeted for. And I'm always taught to spend the money you get. So, that needs to happen. And I've already started that conversation with Martha. And it's just a matter of going back to CVI and see if I can talk to someone on the phone to prioritize that before the end of the fiscal year. But yes,
Okay.
that will be done. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you
Yeah.
asked.
so will that use that whole line?
No, let me see if I can find it. Oh, that's from last year's budget document. I don't have it.
I'm just wondering if
No,
that
it
could be used for the table for the computers.
Bill was asking about the firewall. Is that what
I
you're
know.
asking?
No, I'm
Yeah.
asking after the firewall is taken care of, does that exhaust the line or are there additional funds left? And
Well, and
if
that's the
so,
question. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. I need to
Right.
look to see how much the firewall was budgeted for, and that's what I was gonna look to
Right.
see if I could, but
Yeah,
that was in last year's.
I
budget.
think that was 15,000 was what was budgeted.
okay,
It's
whether-
quite expensive.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, does that sound about right for firewall protection? Seems,
Yeah, you're putting me on the spot here, Bill. I guess it just doesn't, it doesn't sound egregiously wrong.
right. No, I didn't mean to do that. I just, you probably have a better understanding than I do of the equipment part of
Believe
things.
it or not, I've installed firewall, but I don't know that I've ever paid to have it installed.
Okay,
Mm.
But I was like 8 then, and my dad hung me.
right. Yeah,
Well, one of my priorities is to assess every budget line in the current fiscal year to make sure we are spending our money by the end of the year, and how much, where are we in every budget line, and how much do we have left to spend. There's been I mean, we're on track with spending. I've been to these board meetings. I see the reports every month, but there are some projects like the firewall that's a big ticket item that we need to I need to prioritize to move forward before the end of the year.
Right.
So that is something I need to get a handle on.
Can I ask
And-
a selfish
sorry.
question quickly? Do we anticipate wrapping up in the next 5 or so minutes? If I don't make the 8:32, I'm gonna get home
Oh.
really late.
Oh, yeah. I mean, up to
Yeah.
you, Bill. I think we can.
yeah,
And
I think so.
Yeah, and I would say to Matt, if you need to get on your way, please go right ahead.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just, if I need to leave, then I'll just stay on the phone. I can listen on the phone, and I'll add any notes as I get on the train. And then I'll just put my notes from this meeting, because I have quite a few, in a Google Doc, and share that. Who do I share that with? Renee, Kathy?
I think all of us.
All of us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then we'll review that, and I'm imagining at the next finance committee meeting.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Matt, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I really appreciate how thorough this board is, this committee is, and it's important. And I was doing this literally with department heads, and they did not expect on my day 3 to be doing a thorough budget review and argument with me,
new
but
New
trial by
sheriff in
fire.
town. New sheriff.
yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you.
No, you're fine. Okay, so just coming back to library furnishings, questions or discussion for
No,
that
no.
amount, and that is 6,500.
No, I mean, that's good for, that's good for next year.
Get new chairs.
And I mean, I do remember Kathy you mentioning something about new office stuff, so that's why I did put it in there, but if
That's-
it's not
sure.
possible, I
No,
can
that
always,
that was our intention. That's yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, very generous.
Yeah, and
Exterior
frankly,
building,
Staff kind of wanted to order, and I said, no, let's just let Renee sit in there and get comfortable, look around, look at what's available, and look at the configuration that she wants. It really is yours to design and figure out best for yourself.
well, I appreciate that. I've also been at a sit-stand desk for the last 6 years, and it's been life-changing for me. And so, I mean, and actually it's just quite cheaper than anything larger. So I'm looking to save you all money as well. Exterior building improvements, 51200. This has been increased to address priority needs of the building survey results and of the Building and Grounds Committee. Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And I didn't identify anything specific because we haven't met as Building and
Yeah.
Grounds yet to prioritize those needs. So
Okay.
any questions, discussion?
Only, and real quick, the staff computer, and we'll talk about this when I see you on Thursday. I think I shared with you when we were discussing the carols and the computers. Claire Abramson, who is a friend of the library, is also on our committee, was pointing out that the Friends had paid for the computers for those carols, they thought, and then we were being told by staff that the public preferred the laptops or the desktops. So please just survey the equipment we have, and it's,
Yes.
you know, where it's needed is great, but is it being used? Don't put it in the closet. Do not especially do that to our donors, because that turns them off right away.
No, absolutely. And sorry, just letting Matt in here to the meeting. So a lot, even in that discussion, Eliza was talking about how she could use some laptops for downstairs in the youth services space. So I think there is going to be good discussion about how we can better utilize those tools. And even if they're not serving the need of the front of the first floor of those
Yeah,
study
and
carrels.
once we get that settled, please let the friends know what they're.
Where they are, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if we do a sticker on them or anything, but if we don't,
Oh,
we should.
We should, yeah.
And so oh, sorry, so we didn't finish out exterior building improvements. Any thoughts or questions or discussion there?
No.
None on my end.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is 58100 computer equipment. This has been decreased because of, I believe is the firewall coming out of this one?
Yes, that's where it will come out of.
Matt, do you mind if I mute you just a little bit? There's some background noise.
Yeah, no, please. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, don't apologize. You're doing what you gotta do. Okay.
I'll mute myself.
Okay, sounds good. I don't want to be like that teacher. It's like, muting. Okay. So this has been decreased to 10,000 after the installation of the items in the, this is the new firewall in 22-23. However, I've already identified some items that we do need for staff. Department heads are using their personal work computers, for work. Not just on site, but at home. And apparently this was something that the director did too. And with the cost of laptops now, I really do think that that's something that's manageable to have for at least department heads to be able, because they do have the flexibility to work from home. So that's a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
Only two devices, and I ran into this when meeting with Bill. The iMac and the iPad are the only ones that have webcams. So for example, I am using my own personal laptop right now, whereas if I had a staff laptop I could bring from home, it would already have a webcam built in. But there are no webcams elsewhere in the library for staff to use. So that's another reason they have to use their personal devices. Also staff monitors, that is something that was identified a couple of years ago, and I don't know if it had ever been prioritized in a budget. But staff are interested in monitors, and I would say for one staff in particular, the person who does a lot of the graphics, which is Jillian, it's very difficult just workflow wise to manage graphics and have only one monitor nowadays with how those graphics need to be worked on, even if it's just a larger monitor for the work of graphics that she does. I would recommend that. And then there are other items that I haven't even identified that I'm interested in surveying staff about.
Okay,
Any questions or discussion for this budget item?
no,
Budget line.
No.
Nothing on my end.
All right, thank you. So we are going to go to library equipment, 58270. This is a miscellaneous fund. And some of the comments here are that our book bins are very aged and could potentially use purchasing new ones. So this budget is proposed at 1,000. I believe there's no change to that.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay. Discussion on the next item, which is transferred to reserve 71000. And this is to have regular contributions to our savings plan for the library. And this is just a starting of discussion. With increased projected revenue, the library is able to increase savings if we would like, for a total of 25,000. Any questions or discussion on this item?
No, this
No.
is something Renee and I talked about yesterday a little bit, that, you know, the reserve is getting healthier every year. So we're, you know, I think it's up to like 475. And I think with that, with the report that we got, we can kind of look at now what capital projects we want to be looking at over the next 2 to 5 years. What was encouraging is that the HVAC is looking as though that's still got quite a number of years away from being replaced. So gives us time to save up for some things. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, good. Yeah, at first I looked at 5,000. I thought, whoa, but up to 25. And
Yeah.
once we go through this whole assessment report, we'll begin to prioritize, and it's
Yeah.
better to do a little bit here and there than get everything dropped on us on top.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, this is good.
Matt, any,
If I may go.
we can sort of hear you, Matt.
Yeah, no
I
feedback,
heard-
but I'm good. I'm good.
Okay,
Yeah.
repeating what you just said, no feedback from Matt, you're good. Okay, thank
All right.
you. So it sounds like we're good to move on?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we've already discussed this last item, which is contingency. We are going to, based on the recommendation of the committee, zero out this fund and move remaining funds or redistribute those funds to other budget lines in the expenditures list.
Right.
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay. This has been a very long meeting. You all have done so
Right.
much work. Thank you so much. I'm really just thrilled with everything. And if there is any further discussion or any other topics the committee would like to address at this
Yeah.
time.
I have one item, which is on page 4, I think, is of which is the grants, the per capita
Yes.
grant, miscellaneous grants, unrestricted donations. There's a total there of 25,153. I'm wondering if where you've got your first page that you show the revenues under other, would they just be a line item for gifts and grants? Because that's going to add to your library fund revenue number. If
Well,
those,
there certainly should be. I wonder, are you suggesting that the total other is the grant and funding?
well, I'm looking. If I look at the first page, there's no line item for the per capita grant and miscellaneous
Correct.
grant. So it shows up on 8F as grants and donations, where we've got unrestricted donations 15,000. And I don't know, Kathy, is that would that be something that one of the organizations gives us each year, where it's unrestricted, and then there's a restricted donations of 2,000?
Yeah,
I think it's the Friends, right?
Yep.
I think it is the Friends. I think it is the
Yeah.
Friends. And then anyone who happens to send a check our way
Right.
would be as well.
So there's another 25,000 that probably needs to go into the general your first page revenue, so that you'd have a line item there, which would bring your total your library fund revenue to like 1,176,000. And then when you take all your expenditures, we talked about the maintenance outside, that has to go up 1,500. We talked about the miscellaneous income line, that's at 17, and that's going to come down to 3. So there's 14,000 there as well that needs to be recovered. And then the only other one that I noticed of significance was the 1,000 then on the
Automation.
yes. So what that does is that would probably, when you put all that together, that would still probably give you some excess monies over those budgets. And maybe at this particular time, we could just look at putting it into that transfer to reserve number as a placeholder if after reviewing any of these accounts that we want to do any kind of changes.
That makes
Okay.
complete sense to me. I'm just, for some reason, I intuited incorrectly that the total other line that is on the revenue page is the grant and funding, but you're saying it's not.
I'm looking at, I don't see it as a line item on there because we've got the District 65, the village
Yeah.
contribution, the late operating costs, interest income, and then the other one was miscellaneous income, which we reduced that down to 3,000. So the other line item then should
The
be that
total.
grants and gifts, which
I see what you're
includes the
saying.
per capita, miscellaneous grants, unrestricted donations, which will be the friend, and restricted donations, as Kathy said, would be 2. So you add all those items there, that puts another
Yeah.
25,153 into the other section.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's a big oversight. Thank you for noticing that.
Well, no,
I
you've
will-
got it, you've got it written down in there, Renee. I mean, it's it's not being pulled to the front page.
Well, and right, and I was working with the front, but I mean, I was working with just the front page. I wasn't
Yeah.
working with.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Bill, for that.
right.
I
And
will
that-
adjust.
And yeah, and that kind of replicates when you receive the revenue and expenditure reports that come in. You'll see that all of those are on the front page. All the revenues numbers are on there, and it does have like your per capita grant has its own count number of 36265, and it's just
Right. It does. Yeah, it has it right here. I'm sharing my screen if you can see, but
okay.
yeah. Thank you. I'll be sure to amend that as well. So it sounds like, and Kathy went to go walk her dog.
Yeah, and
literally.
I've got to check into a hotel that hopefully they haven't given my
Yes.
room away.
Oh my gosh.
No,
All right.
they definitely didn't. So.
Okay, good. So that change will be made as per Bill's recommendation. Thank you, Bill. Kathy looks like she's coming back. Any other further business to discuss? Any further
No.
business to discuss, Kathy or Matt
No.
or Bill?
No,
Thank you. Thank
no,
you.
right.
And
So,
I'm ready for preparation. So good job.
thank you. I would just ask for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'll second.
All right.
All right.
I think we heard an aye from Matt.
Yeah.
Aye.
All right.
Safe
I hope
travels.
that's not a no. That's a high. Okay.
That's funny. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
I really appreciate you and
Yeah.
your support. Have a good evening.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Travel
Bye now.
safe, Matt.
All right.